Okay, folks, if we can start working our way to our seats, we're going to start in just 1 second. Hi, how are you? Real quick, just pop up and... Okay, all right, thank you. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. It is 6:04. I'm going to call our meeting to order. And this is Wednesday, April 5th, 2023. And just so everyone knows, we had a workshop earlier today at 3 o'clock, and then we did have a closed session. Mr. City Attorney, do we have anything to report out of our closed session?
We do not, Mayor.
All right, thank you so much. And let's see, Madam Clerk, has the city received any additional correspondence on tonight's agenda?
Yes, you have. It is included in your red folder. It's item 11.1, a statement from the appellant.
All right, very good. Thank you for that. And then with that, do you mind calling roll for us?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Dinas.
Here.
Councilmember Estrada.
Here.
Councilmember Sobek.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Carwin.
Here.
And Mayor Zimmerman.
And I'm here. Thank you very much. I know that tonight we have the pastor from Eagle Ridge Church, Pastor Steve Leonards is here, and his wife Catherine's here to join us as well. But Pastor Leonards, thank you for coming to share some words of inspiration and help set the tone for our council meeting tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor Zimmerman and council members, for inviting me on this very special week. It's Passion Week to 2.6 billion individuals who identify as Christians. And when you think about Passion Week, obviously I think most people refer to it as Easter week. Passion is an interesting phrase. Passion Week's an interesting phrase. And I want to share, before I pray, my favorite verse is John 3:16, the Gospel of John. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. And that's why they call it Passion Week. It was God's passion that he sent his Son Jesus to die for our sins. And so that's the week, and 2.6 billion Christians celebrate that and express it in different ways this week. But typically this Friday is Good Friday, the day that we honor and respect that the Lord died on the cross, and then thank goodness he didn't stay dead. He rose on the third day. And so with that, I'd like to pray, if you would join me in bowing your heads. Dear God, we just thank you for this wonderful city of Menifee. Lord, I want to pray a special blessing on not only our mayor, who's doing an amazing job, but our council members. Lord, I pray for a cohesiveness, that they can continue to work together and bring honor to you. Lord, I pray a peace and a blessing, especially during this time of Passion Week, over our city, that you continue to guide our leaders, bless them, keep our first responders safe, Lord, and all our citizens. And Lord, we thank you for this evening, that our city can take care of the business that's before them. In your name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Leonards. We appreciate you being here tonight. We're on item 4, Pledge of Allegiance, and we always like to ask someone special in the audience to lead us in our flag salute. And I just met a young man. His name's Dylan. He is the second in command at Paloma Valley High School's Battalion for Cadets and the NJROTC program. Dylan, do you mind leading in our flag salute? Okay, let's all stand. And just for our record, what is your last name again, Dylan? C. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, we are now on item 5. This is proclamations and presentations, and there's 2 of them to do. So I'm going to ask our council members to come up to the front, and I'm also going to ask Erica Haranek with the DMV Donate Life Month to join us at the front as well. And I see Erica, so come on up, council members. Microphone number 1, there it is. I hear it coming on. So, Erica, thank you so much for being here today. This is a special day. I was told, and were you here last year? No, I was told, you and I have communicated through email, and I know you're a recipient of a heart transplant, right? Which is amazing, and we're so thankful that it was successful and that you're here with us tonight. So what's happening is we're going to proclaim April as DMV Donate Life Month, and this has to do with helping people become aware that they can donate organs and tissues and check that off when they apply for their driver's license so that it could save somebody's life. And there are thousands of people who are on waiting lists for all of those organs to be donated. And so that is what we're doing here today. It's an awareness thing, but the city council wants to make that proclamation. But I'm going to allow Erica to share a little bit more about it, because you're much more knowledgeable than I am.
Yeah, say it. IT, can you show the slide? Thank you. Okay, so I'm currently a One Legacy ambassador. I've been for the past 5 years. And One Legacy is the liaison between transplant centers and the hospitals. And along with the partnership with the DMV, we'd like to extend our gratitude and appreciation for the mayor and the city Menifee for issuing the Donate Life Month proclamation, because Donate Life Month is really important. Without organ, eye, and tissue donation, many lives would not have been saved and healed, especially in this city and in the surrounding community. I've lived in the Lake Elsinore-Wildomar community for over 33 years. My mom actually lives in Menifee. And my heart journey actually began around Easter of 2016 when I got ill, and it triggered a heart attack, and then triggered an arrhythmia, then triggered me going to cardiac arrest about 9 times to the point of needing life support. And I would not have survived without a heart transplant. I had about a 10% chance of survival. I was sent to Cedars-Sinai, and around Easter of 2017, I got the call, thanks to my donor, Dylan Stump. He was a 19-year-old student. He was my match. He saved my life. He was Cal Baptist going home for Easter dinner, 2017. Little fender bender, waiting for a tow truck in the right lane. Traffic backs up. People get impatient. A gentleman decided to go down the emergency lane at 65 miles an hour and hit his car. So he saved 5 lives, mine included. 213 tissue samples were recovered. Now, tissue samples meaning like the ACLs, knee replacement, dental implants, tissues for mastectomies or burn victims, just to give you an example of what tissue samples are, because sometimes it's not always clear what that is. But that's how many lives he just impacted, because he matched me. And just because you're a registered donor doesn't necessarily mean you are going to be matched. So there's some data on the screen up here. Last year, 2022, nationwide, 42,800 transplants were done, which is totally awesome. 14 years in a row, it's gone up like 1,000 or so each year. But let's break it down. For Southern California, we also had a record, 4,866 transplants. whereas the year before was 4,600. So this is truly incredible. More lives are being impacted by the increasing awareness of organ, eye, and tissue donation, especially within the community in the city. But let's look at the current transplant list. 106,000 nationwide are waiting for a transplant. This time last year was 106,000. Do the math. We did 42,000. In December, it was 104, and then it's back up to 106. What's going on? Well, because there's not enough matches, about 17 to 19 people pass away every day, and just as many, while waiting, just as many are getting right back on that transplant list. So it's truly, truly heartbreaking to see. Now, the wait list for Southern California is 24,441. Compare that to the 4,800 transplants we did. Big discrepancy. Number one organ is needed is kidney. 21,000 people are needing kidney in Southern California. Many wait up to 11 years if they make it. They're on dialysis, and we all know dialysis is just not a nice way of living. So we like to raise that awareness. So by increasing the awareness with One Legacy and Donate Life Month, there's several things that we do. We do the city proclamations. In the lower right-hand corner, you're going to see a picture of myself standing next to my donor's mom, Dana, at the Donate Life Run Walk, which is April 29th, Saturday at Azusa Pacific University in Azusa. 12,000 people attend, all donor families. It's really surreal to see that. There's a posters, you're sitting there with pictures of Dylan on there. There's something called a Circle of Life garden, where all the heroes of organ donors are put up on this wall in honor. And there's a wall next to it with all the DMV Donate Life proclamations to show support. The other way our community shows support is the hospitals do the Donate Life Raise the Flag ceremony to honor the donors at their hospitals. And then we do Blue Green on April 14th. And the DMV, being the main source of organ registration, participate in pictures there. And I partner with the Temecula DMV, and they won statewide out of 84 DMVs to show. And many of them actually have a direct connection to organ, eye, and tissue donation. And for those of you who have a pink dot, I thank you, because you never know. You might be someone's match. In my case, my donor mom calls me the silver lining to a tragedy. I get to honor his legacy with her. Another thing is I was a teacher for 20 years in the Lake Elsinore Unified School District, primarily at Terracotta Middle School. And I had students randomly show up at my house since 1999. I don't know how they got my address. But but I'm glad they did. And I had some bring me this. I was an English teacher. It's a pig with wings when pigs fly. And so it motivated me to go, because I was in a really tough place. And it let me know that, you know what, they think that organ donation is making the impossible possible. And if you're not a registered donor and you're thinking about it, maybe down the line, you might be that one. You might be that match, because you just never know when life's going to happen. And my recommendation, too, is make sure those memories count every time, because you never know when something like this happens, or like in my case, something. So I appreciate the city helping me make pigs fly.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, so let's give her a hand. Erica took her time to come here today because it's important. As you can hear, it's saving people's lives, so it's important to us as well. And today we are proclaiming April as DMV Donate Life Month here in the city of Menifee, and also encouraging people to check yes on the box when they're doing their driver's license update. And whenever you do that, you are potentially saving someone else's life. So here today on April the 5th, we are proclaiming this day as DMV Donate Life Month.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Let's take the pictures together. We'll give that to you. Excellent. Thank you so much for being here. Yes. All right, next up, I would like to call up Ms. Kitzrow, Cheryl Kitzrow. She is our Community Development Director. She's going to share a little bit about our next proclamation, and this one is National Community Development Week. Has to do with community development block grants, which I think those of you who know that it's a federal program. And here's Edna LeBron as well, who manages our CDBG program. So I'm gonna let Cheryl talk first, and then I think we'll probably hear from Edna, who does all the work.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, for the opportunity for us to really shine a light on the Community Development Block Grant here in the city. It's one of the few remaining federally funded programs to assist with lower income families in our community and nonprofits that serve them. We've been part of this CDBG program for the last 10 years. As the mayor mentioned, our staff running the program is small but mighty, just Edna LeBron here doing all this work. And over the last 10 years, I just want to highlight, we've helped over 60 nonprofits with $650,000. We've provided funding for 69 senior home repair projects for $850,000, and we've funded 11 capital improvement projects for $1.8 million. The city gets about $550,000 annually, and so we're able to leverage those funds to put back to support our community. So that's all.
Well, I'm just going to say that it's been an honor to serve the city of Menifee for the last 6 years, but it's been an even greater honor to help our low-mod residents here in Menifee. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. We appreciate everything you guys do and our great programs for our nonprofits here in town that are serving those socioeconomically challenged folks. And so we're going to go ahead and take our seats again because that's the end of our proclamation. All right, moving along in our agenda, we are on item 6. This is agenda approval or modifications. Madam Clerk, do we have any modifications to tonight's agenda?
There are none, Mayor.
Okay, so council members, all in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, so our agenda is approved unanimously, and we're now on item 7. Excuse me. This is public comments for non-agenda items. And it's the time for members of the public to address the council about items that are not listed on the agenda. The Brown Act limits the council's ability to respond to comments on non-agendized matters at the time those comments are made, and each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes on a single item. Madam Clerk, do we have any folks interested in speaking under public comments on non-agendized matters?
There are 2.
Okay.
Natalie Gagliano, followed by Owen Braun.
All right, welcome, Ms. Gagliano. The podium is here, and there may be somebody that can help you adjust it. There's a little button on the right, underneath, on the right, on your right, and underneath, and it'll lower the podium for you so the microphone's set up.
I'm okay. I'm not
You're
that
okay?
short.
All right.
Kind of I
There
am,
you go.
but
Somebody's got it for you.
Thank you.
All right, welcome.
Thank you, City Council, for allowing me to speak. Oh,
Yep, you're good.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, again, thank you, City Council, for allowing me to speak tonight. I wanted to speak with you regarding what I believe to be a very big issue in our community. So first, I'm very involved in the community and our animals. I have a couple of groups on Facebook. I also have a very big group on Nextdoor to support the animal. And about 30 days ago, I started a petition. And I have, as of now, over 22,000 signatures. Today alone, over 2,000 signatures was signed on the petition. Why? Because there are a couple of issues that I'm seeing in our community that I did not see where I raised my kids in Redondo Beach. Number one, we have dogs that are being sold on the side of the street with huge sign of pickup trucks, dogs that are being sold in parking lots, dogs that are being sold at fairs, overcrowded shelters, which I agree it's a problem everywhere, but our city, and more importantly, the ordinance that was passed, 2018-252, which gives the city greater ability to regulate and enforce the laws and against the violators regarding our animals. However, when I read the city, which is the ordinance, which is pretty large, it seems like a lot of those codes, so what the ordinance is showing, is not being ensured that violators are not doing are following the ordinance. It's not being implemented. The problem is we also have dogs off-leash dog attacking and killing other dogs. We know them, we see them, they're all over the parks, they're all on public land, in parks where there are playgrounds. All of the ordinance is showing all of that. There are specific structure against violators. But yet animal control, which I spoke with Chief Middleton, has their hand tied. She's willing to come here and support the cause. I had a lengthy meeting with her and speak about what needs to be done from the city council and our ordinance. When I look at Riverside and other cities, we are behind the 8 ball in our licensing fee, in the way that we are making sure
The
that
time
the
has
ordinance
expired.
is being followed. Is it 3 minutes?
It's been 3 minutes.
I
If
am
you can wrap
sorry.
it up, we'll let you have a little bit more if you can bring it to the end.
I will wrap up very quickly. I'm asking, the issue I want to speak of is off-leash dog, sale of dogs in public places, overcrowded shelter, taxpayer money that goes towards euthanization, repeat offense that are not being followed through, and adoption from rescues that only have puppies, never pulled from our local shelters. Menifee needs to be doing best practices with the other city. We need to be the leaders, not the one that follow and fall behind.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Gagliano.
It's
We
time to take a
appreciate you
step.
wrapping it up. All right.
Thank you.
All right, Madam Clerk, would you call the next speaker, please?
Owen Braun.
You can pull the microphone down just a little bit. There you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, staff, and community. My name is Owen Braun. And I'm Nicholas Henderson. And we are a part of the SoCal Aces travel baseball team. We are here tonight to introduce our club and inform you of the fundraising we are doing for our club. SoCal Aces is a nonprofit, 100% volunteer-run organization that has committed to our youth since 2014 right here in our beautiful city of Menifee. We are currently looking for support and sponsorships from business and individuals to help offset some expenses and provide a meaningful and safe experience to our athletes. We will have a cornhole tournament at Silver Star Park in May and other fundraisers events in June and July. We are currently selling raffle tickets for a Yeti cooler filled with goodies. Your support is imperative in allowing us to grow our baseball community for the youth and will make a difference in the seasons ahead. Please review our sponsorship opportunities and let us know if you have any questions. You can make the checks playable to SoCal Aces and contact us if you have any questions. We have some flyers here for you, and we also have raffle tickets if anyone would like to buy some. 1 for $25 or 5 for $100. SoCal Aces and us, thank you in advance for any help you can afford us.
All right, very good. Thank you both, Nick and Owen, for
Thank you.
speaking about SoCal Aces. I'm going to ask our council members if we can just stand right here together, and I'm going to have the team get right in front of us for a photo. So we'll just kind of stay behind the dais, and you guys can come right up here. Can you see us all? Tighten on up. Excellent. So if you would also please give this to your mama and send us a invitation to the cornhole tournament and any other things, and we'll see if we can attend and help you out. All right, thank you guys for coming tonight and introducing yourselves. And we hope you have a great season. Be safe, don't get hurt. All right, Madam Clerk, do we have any other speakers on non-agendized matters?
There are none.
All right, thank you so much. We're going to move on now to item 8, council member updates and comments. We'll start with Councilman Dinas.
Thank you. Being the springtime, we've had a lot of events, which was exciting. Start off with the wildlife appreciation event. That was a lot of interesting animals. That was enjoyable. I did attend the Southwest T-Now subcommittee meeting for RTA. The next day I attended the RTA meeting as a board member. On the April 1st was a spring fest in Remington Park. Ribbon cutting is a unique park in the fact that it's a Western theme, which is unique, as well as is an inclusive park. So it's pretty exciting. A lot of Easter eggs being hunted, and a lot of kids out there. It was a great turnout. On the 4th, I attended the kickoff of the Wall That Heals and the escort to Miller Jones. That was quite a great event with all the motorcycles preceding it. We had motorcycle police from Corona, Murrieta, and the sheriff, along with the Menifee PD. And a lot of Vietnam veterans and their motorcycles escorted them to Miller Jones, which it'll be open today through, I think, the 9th. They'll be closing up. This is the last time it'll be in Southern California. It moves off to Texas after that. And so if you have a chance to go see it, I'd greatly encourage you to do that. As well, tomorrow, I'll put a little plug in, is our Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans event, where we recognize and honor those that did serve and returned home. Then lastly, this morning, I had the privilege of attending the Student of the Month for that. And the council members here know how exciting it is, because you hear a lot of great stories of success and some hardships and how they overcame it. So it's a great pleasure to be able to do that and hear those stories and honor those kids. They're seniors in the Paris Union School District, the high school district. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you so much. Councilman Estrada.
Well, it's springtime, and I'm happy that we have better weather, and it definitely brightens my mood. So with all the events going on, just to mention a few that I attended the Park Rangers Wildlife event. They had sharks there, believe it or not, which was pretty cool. I made sure to keep my hand out of the tank, though. I also went to the EMWD offices, and I would just want to let the residents know that there's a lot of optimism for the Quail Valley community and the septic tank situation, and funding is on the way. After talking to the staff over there at EMWD, they're working really hard on getting the city of Menifee a lot more grants. Also, I went to the chamber nomination ceremony with Mayor Zimmerman. Got to say hi to all the successful, hardworking small businesses here in our city. And I want to go out there to show my support for them. I went to the Menifee Multicultural Festival at Central Park. I went to the Spring Fest, Remington Park. It's a Western theme. And if you guys like zip lining, they have a zip line there. Just be careful, okay? Also, I went yesterday to the Wall That Heals, and I just want to say thank you to all the Vietnam veterans out there. It is a replica of the wall, and just to let residents know, it only comes to the city once in its lifetime. So if you haven't had the opportunity, you have till April 9th to take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime event here in Menifee. That's all I got. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman. Councilmember Sobek.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to bring up my presentation. I have a few pictures to show from a few of the things I've attended. So this was Mayor Zimmerman and our Supervisor Washington, the Health and Safety Fair. And I would just like to say thank you for doing this. I understand they're taking this on the road. You know, emergency preparedness and emergency response is something that is usually at the bottom of our list. But when an emergency happens, we need to know that information. So I'm so glad that we're finally doing this. This is something that I've wanted to happen since I've been on the council, and appreciate the partnership that you took with Supervisor Washington and Vanessa, our staff member, who actually did a great job with this. The room was full, and I guess if your community that you live in would like a presentation, you can contact Vanessa from our city hall and see if she can come and make a presentation, because it's totally worth it. I attended also the Spring Fest and Remington Park ribbon cutting. What a beautiful park that we have here for our residents. As it was stated earlier, they do have a zip line, but they actually have the largest shade structure I have ever seen at any park. It is all covered under shade. There's pickleball and tot lot, and I just see our residents going to have a great time there. Thank you for community services. I understand there were 25,000 Easter eggs that they had prepared. So, whoa. Also, I attended the Western Riverside Conservation Authority. Again, at this time, you can see some of the hills are on fire with our poppies, just to remind our residents that the Walker Canyon is closed. And I believe the city of Lake Elsinore has a link that you can go to and look at the poppies online. But I've never seen before the poppies, when you look out to the west here in Menifee, I've never seen the poppies on this side of the hills. So you can drive to the end of Ethonac and take a few cool pictures and enjoy the poppies, because when it gets hot this weekend, I think they're going to go away. But I attended that regular meeting. It was mostly just maintenance stuff that we took care of, nothing else to share except Walker Canyon still closed. I attended the Menifee Interfaith and Community Service Council meeting yesterday. Our Chief Chris Carr was our guest speaker, and I want to thank him for coming out and sharing with those in attendance all the wonderful things that Menifee Police Department is doing. Again, it was mentioned the Wall That Heals is in the city of Menifee. If you get a chance over the next few days, it's open 24 hours a day, located at Miller Jones Mortuary. And I just want to thank Miller Jones for partnering and asking the city to partner with them, our community services for all that they did, Michael Cano, from all of those from post 1956 who made this happen. It just warmed my heart. It is truly a patriotic and an emotional experience. So if you get a chance to go out there, please do. There's a few more pictures of it. One thing I wanted to share is that I do attend the, and I didn't see those pictures on here, so I'm gonna have to get them to staff, but I am a representative for our Supervisor Washington, and I am his commissioner for the Community Action Partnership Organization. They do a lot of things and provide a lot of resources for our low income. One of the things that they are doing right now, and I know we're in the midst of our tax season, but they continue doing this all year long. And this is some information we need to get out to our residents. Anyone that makes $75,000 a year or less can get free income tax services. But they're also looking for volunteers. They have 65 volunteers at 25 sites. 2 are located in Menifee, one at MSJC, one at the Case and Acero Senior Center, that they provide these resources. But they need 1,000 volunteers actually to bring back the millions of dollars to these people who bring that money back into their pockets and into their communities. And so there's millions of dollars that isn't being, I guess by not having your tax refund done, isn't being collected. And it's just sitting there at the state level. So we actually can help our community and our residents. So if they will train you. It's a basic tax information form. They will teach you how to do it. So we like to get that information out that they need volunteers. And that's all I have to report on tonight. Thank you.
All right, great report. Mayor Pro Tem Carwin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few things to report. I was fortunate enough to attend the Health and Safety Forum at the Quesada Center, which was an excellent program. If you ever get a chance to sit in on some of the programs we got over there, please take a look at their calendar. It's not just limited to senior involvement, anyone, member of the public. It's just a community facility, so please take advantage of their schedule of events over there. I attended the Western Riverside Council of Governments, WRCOG meeting on the executive committee meeting. Not a lot to report out of there, mostly budgeting and strategic planning. However, there was a discussion about restructuring their membership dues because they haven't changed them since 2008, and they've noticed that the city of Menifee has changed quite a bit since 2008, and they're trying to find a way to make us pay more dues. So they're going to be looking at that. I attended the Multicultural Festival, which was a great time over at Central Park. Some incredible entertainment over there, and great food too. I got to sample some West African tamales, which I didn't know were a thing, but they were delicious. And I attended Spring Fest at Remington Park. I didn't get a chance to be there for the ribbon cutting because I had a family obligation to watch my son's final college volleyball season in action. The mayor and I attended a Rotary meeting of the local Rotary Club, and I had the opportunity to be the sideline announcer for the Paloma Valley High School Wildcats boys volleyball team win against Vista del Lago last night, and they're playing against JW North right now as we speak, so you can see my commitment to the city. I decided to be here instead of there. And just one quick community announcement I wanted to make. By the way, I just want to amplify, in case anyone doesn't know, please, our Vietnam Veterans Welcome Home Ceremony is tomorrow beginning at 10 a.m. at Miller Jones. But what I wanted to let everybody know is that we have not forgotten about the Krikorian Movie Theater. We haven't mentioned it because it hasn't come up on the agenda, but I took a look at the property the other day and I noticed that it's in a state of massive disrepair. There's puddles, there's things like that over there gathering mosquitoes. So we've got the city's attention on it, and we are going to be enforcing it to try to clean up the blight that I think is right there in the middle of our city. And I wanted to assure the residents that we have not forgotten about this project. We are going to hold their feet to the fire and have it get cleaned up and move forward as much as we can. There's other parts of it that are moving forward, but the movie theater, we've not forgotten about it. We're not letting it go. We are enforcing on there. So good things to come.
All right, very good report. And I'll just add on to that. When we were at the ribbon cutting for Remington Park, there was a heckler who yelled at us, "Finish your town center movie theater." And so we got a chance to speak with him and let him know we're on his side and we want it done just as quickly as we can, but it's a private property. And so it's not a city failure. We're doing our best to make sure that that project comes to fruition by the private developer. So anyway, I'm going to try to be quick here. This is since our last meeting on March 15th. On the 16th, I attended the Neighbors Monthly Business Mixer in Wildemar. On Saturday the 6th, there was a history program regarding the Boris family. It was really well attended. I think Councilman Estrada attended that as well. And then that was followed by our Wildlife Day at Central Park that I attended. And then I also attended a fundraiser at the Stat Sanctuary. Stat stands for Save the Animals Today. And it's right there on the east end of our town on Scott Road. And they have animals there that they save from euthanization, mostly large livestock, horses and goats and things like that. But anyway, it's a great organization and it was a good fundraiser. On Thursday, the 23rd, Councilman Carwin and I attended the Rotary Club meeting together, and then there was a special chamber mixer, and as Councilman Estrada mentioned, this was the opportunity to announce the nominees for Business of the Year, large business, small business, as well as nonprofit, and I want to thank the Ninth Shield, they're a business over in Sun City that hosted the event. On Friday, the 24th, I assisted at a barbecue that was free for parents at Boys and Girls Club. They had their awards dinner, and I want to thank Brookfield Homes Community. Their team of volunteers came and helped flip burgers and serve hot dogs and keep everybody happy over at our Boys and Girls Club. On Saturday, the 24th, I assisted in Menifee's Got Talent auditions, and then the Multicultural Festival over at Central Park. On Monday, the 27th, there was an Economic Development Subcommittee that Councilman Carwin and I sit on, and we reviewed a proposal for a battery storage that is going to be coming to all of us at a full council meeting in the future. And so we were taking a look at the community benefit program and component of that. And then later that day, there was a Western Riverside County Projects and Programs Commission. That's that subsidiary of RCTC. So I had to attend that as well in downtown Riverside. It was a busy day. All right, Wednesday the 29th, Romaland Elementary School invited me to their Leadership Day, and it was a great opportunity to go and give some encouragement to all of our young people. And Councilman Member Sobek and I are going to be doing a couple here in the next month. Menifee Elementary, the school district has been hosting a lot of these, and so they're asking us to come, so we're going to come to that. There was another event later that night, and that was at Harvest Hill STEAM Academy, and they had a multicultural event, and so I attended that as well. On Thursday, the 30th, that was when Supervisor Washington and our emergency management team held that health and safety resource forum and emergency preparedness. As Councilmember Sobek mentioned, it is very important. They had a gas meter there, and they showed you how to turn the gas off in case there is a earthquake or something and you're smelling gas. But don't practice it, because once you turn that off, you have to call the gas company to turn it back on. And then, let's see, Saturday the 4th, Menifee Valley Little League had their opening day ceremonies, and it was their season kickoff, and so I went there, and they let me throw the first pitch. And then Remington Park's ribbon cutting and their spring festival, and I absolutely love that zip line, but I'm afraid to try it. Yesterday, the Chamber had a wake-up event, and that was over at WellQuest, right over here across the freeway. And then I joined our council members on that parade escort for the Wall That Heals. And I want to make one more announcement, and that's that this Friday is our very first Foodie Friday, and it is going to be held at MSJC. We used to do it at Central Park. Now it's at MSJC, so hopefully everybody saves up their appetite and comes and enjoys Foodie Friday. That's the end of mine. If there's anything else to add. All right, I think we can move on our agenda now. We're on item 9. This is approval of minutes. There's actually 2 sets of minutes for the same day, March 1st, the special minutes as well as our regular meeting minutes. Council members, all in favor of approving those, would you please say aye? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, those minutes are approved, and we're now on item 10. This is our consent calendar. All matters on the consent calendar will be approved in one motion unless a council member requests a separate action on a specific item on the consent calendar. If an item is removed from the consent calendar, it'll be discussed individually and acted upon separately. Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak on our consent calendar items? Council members, do we have any items that we would like to pull from consent for discussion? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
All right, so Madam Clerk, are we doing electronic voting? All right. Moved by Carwin, seconded by Dinas, I believe. Okay. And I see that that passes unanimously with 5 yeses, and so we're going to move on now to item 11.1. This is sorry, I'm getting there. Our first public hearing item. And I'm going to ask the city's translator, Ling Ling Martin, if you would please come to the podium and begin the translation for your client or for the folks that are here. This item is 11.1, and this is business license denial appeal hearing for Happy 7 Massage business. So, Mr. City Manager, do you want to introduce the team that's going to shepherd us through this agenda item?
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I think I'd like to ask our team to give you a staff report. And I think that report is going to be given first by Margarita Cornejo. And
right.
then we will allow the appellant to provide their testimony.
All right, welcome, Ms. Cornejo.
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor, council members, and members of the public. Tonight, we are presenting item 11.1 related to a business license denial appeal hearing, specifically for the Happy 7 massage business application. As our city manager has summarized, the beginning portion of this item will allow for the appellant to provide any testimony and information they would like to provide to the council. Following that, staff has a presentation consisting of representation of our city attorney's office with our assistant city attorney, Ms. Tai Viet Phan, myself for representing the finance department, Margarita Cornejo. I am the deputy finance director, as well as representation from our police department with our captain, Dave Gutierrez. With that said, I would like to pass the microphone over to the appellant for their opportunity to provide any information and testimony. Sorry.
Disclosure.
Yes, and Ty would like to provide a disclosure on the item itself.
Welcome, Ms. Phan.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council. Tai Viet Phan, Assistant City Attorney. I would just like to do a very quick disclaimer for the public, anyone else who may be watching, as the topic may be sensitive and may not be necessarily appropriate for children or sensitive viewers. I just wanted to put that out there due to the topic of the license. Thank you. And now we will turn it over to the appellant.
Good 晚上好，我叫蒋恒凯，我在2020年3月份买房搬至 Menifee 城市，家庭地址是30052 Honda Court Menifee, California 92584。
Good evening. My name is Jiang Fang Kai. I bought a house and moved to the city of Menifee in March 2020. The address of my house is 3005 Honor Court, Menifee, California 92584.
我是这个城市的常住居民，我喜欢这个城市，所以我选择了这个城市。
I am a permanent resident of the city. I love the city, and that's why I bought a house here.
我在2022年7月26号递交第一次营业执照申请，被拒绝。于2022年10月25号再次申请，也被拒绝。拒绝的理由我不认同。
I submitted my first business license application on July 26, 2022, and my application was denied. I applied again on October 25th, 2022. It was also denied. I don't agree with the reason for the rejection.
因为我对这个城市的法律条款不了解，所以才2次申请。
Because I did not know the legal provisions of the city, and that was why I applied twice.
拒绝的理由和证据不正确。我的律师在2023年4月3日周一已递交文件反驳，给予办事人 Margarita。各位议员有没有看过？
The reasons and the evidence supporting the refusal were incorrect. My lawyer has filed a paper on Monday, April the 3rd, 2023, and the paper has been given to the city clerk, Margarita Cornejo. Have you seen it?
在2021年9月16号签订的租约，至今已经投入15万美元，其中装修10万，付租金5万。这些钱对我的家庭很重要。这是我图片，这是目前店的情况。
The business lease was signed on September 16th, 2021, and I have invested nearly $150,000 to date, of which $100,000 for renovation and $50,000 for the rent. Spending all this money have not been easy on my family, and these are the photos of the location right now.
我希望各位议员给我一个在本市公平生活及做生意的机会。谢谢。
It is my hope that the Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and also the council members could give me a fair chance to live and do business in this city. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, and now I think we'll go back to our staff presentation.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
while they're coming up, I do want to confirm for the record that we do have the April 3rd communication. It's 22 pages in total, and it was in the red folder. It's been presented to all the council members.
So, Ms. Martin, would you please share with the appellant that we do all have his most recent letter and the things that he asked us to read?
Again, Margarita Cornejo, Deputy Finance Director. The balance of the item is a presentation from staff, which has the components from our City Attorney's Office, the Finance Department role, and then our Police Department's role. To start it off, I will have Ty introduce the overall business license appeal process from a legal standpoint.
Hi, good evening again. So just an overview. First, I will discuss the legal standard for this hearing, the appeal, the process, and what the standard is, the reasonableness standard. The Finance Department will then discuss the history of the business license, its purpose, and the process for determining an approval or an appeal. And then finally, Captain Gutierrez will discuss with Menifee what Menifee PD does in doing the background check and the live scan, and really the thorough process by which they make a recommendation to the Finance Department. So, under the ordinance that was approved by City Council last year, Menifee Municipal Code 2.04.050F, the appellant has the burden of establishing why the denial should be revised or changed. The appellant has to present specific evidence to support the grounds for appeal. Here, the council has the authority to uphold the denial, modify the denial, or reverse the Finance Department's denial, or it can take any action that might legally have been taken. The action of the council is final. So the code provides that massage establishments are a special business type that has a heightened standard and additional licensing requirements. Here, it allows the chief of police or his designee to investigate the background of the owner or persons managing or supervising the business, and really gives the police chief some discretion in order to protect the public's health, safety, and welfare. Included in this is that those applying for a special business type must be fingerprinted and photographed, or can be. Moreover, consideration will be given to the criminal record of the owner or other supervisors involved with the business, as well as looking at their business responsibility. So for example, whether they've had other previous license revocations, denials, or citations. So a business license of any type may be denied or revoked for some of the following reasons. I'm only listing the specific ones here. And it includes the facts and circumstances discovered by the background investigation by the PD, which may indicate acts of deceit, fraud, or other acts of moral turpitude, and based on the applicant's statement on the business license application or while they're filling it out. The chief of police or their designee just needs to reasonably determine whether the applicant could not conduct the business in a law-abiding manner, or that they would conduct the business in a manner that would subject patrons or the business enterprise to risk of harm or criminal or deceitful activity or other unethical practices. We want to make clear that when you adopted the ordinance for the special business types or business license ordinance, it was clear that an application is not denied solely on the basis that any person was convicted of a felony or misdemeanor if that person has met all the applicable requirements under state law for rehabilitation. It's really about the totality of the circumstances and information obtained during the background check and the live scan conducted by Menifee PD, as well as the review and approval or denial by the finance department. So I will turn this over to Deputy Director Cornejo. Thank you.
Thank you. So specific to the program oversight and administration, the business license program exists within Chapter 5.01 of the Menifee Municipal Code. It was first established in 2008 with the intent of serving as a regulatory program and not a business license tax program. The business license program ensures that all businesses operating within the city's jurisdiction follow federal, state, and local requirements, including but not limited to police, fire, building and zoning codes. The business license program itself is housed and administered by the finance department, and ultimately the purpose is to provide the necessary regulation and provide a record system of businesses being conducted within the city of Menifee for the purpose of protecting the public health, safety, and welfare of city residents. In July of 2022, the city incorporated the addition of the special business types, which our Assistant City Attorney has referred to, which listed not just massage businesses, but a list of other businesses that are have heightened activity and propensity to require backgrounds and fingerprints in them. Here is the list as well as was presented and adopted in July. In the review and processing of licensing, here is just a general summary of the 4 steps that need to be completed by any business that's going through the application process, starting from the inquiry to permits and approvals, applications, license and issuance, and the annual renewal process. So the special business type additional requirements live in step number 2, which includes planning reviews for in-city businesses, background investigations, which are generally timed at a 2 to 3 week processing time, and any other applicable county, state, and local permit requirements. The addition of massage businesses in particular as a special business type is included as the existence and prevalence of illicit massage businesses, which exist as massage parlors that oftentimes will front the commercial sale of things like sex services, is a nationwide problem with over 11,000 illicit massage businesses operating in America and generating about $2.5 billion. One of the research and nonprofits that works around this element and focusing in this area has specifically highlighted that licensing and regulations of these businesses is an easily exploitable patchwork of state and local laws and ordinances that allow this blatant illegal industry to survive and thrive in such a public way. So the addition of the special business types helps mitigate some of the prevalence of these businesses. Specific to the Happy 7 business license application, as was stated by the appellant tonight, there were 2 applications that were received. The first one was received on July 26, 2022, and listed the applicant and an employee. And during the live scan and background completion process, false information and prior criminal history with at least one of the listed employees was identified. Therefore, the application decision was to issue a denial letter, and there's no follow-up action to that specific application. The second application was received on October 25th with the applicant listed above. And the live scan background results of that indicated false information and prior illicit massage business associations associated with the applicant were identified during the background live scan process. And from that, the application decision was to issue a denial on December. The follow-up action is the appeal that is being considered tonight after the applicant submitted a appeal in January. I will now invite Captain Gutierrez from the police department to give some additional information specifically on the background and live scan process that was completed.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Captain Dave Gutierrez with the Police Department. So just a quick overview of what the Police Department does once we receive these special business type applications. We receive that from the Finance Department, the application itself. The individuals are directed to obtain a live scan. Oh, thank you. The live scan ultimately ends up being sent to the Police Department with the results. We send our problem-oriented policing department officers out to do an on-site inspection. We conduct local records checks. That's both here in Menifee and then any place we can associate other businesses that may have been owned by the applicants, those city jurisdictions as well, to see if there's any other criminal activity or other issues that they have experienced. And then a lot of times these applications go quick. We've received, I believe, 3 or 4 other massage license applicants, and things checked out clear, and those folks were approved to continue on with their business license, their businesses in the city. But when we do find things in the live scans such as this, things can take a little bit of time. So if we, based on the totality of the investigation, determine that we believe this application should be denied, we author a memo directly to the Finance Department describing our investigation, and then Finance is the ones who ultimately make the final decision to send that denial notice to the applicant. So in this case, the applicant had no history. Ms. Wong, I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly. Her live scan was ultimately delayed for a little bit, but when we received it back, it showed an August 3rd, 2017 arrest for prostitution. I will say, ultimately, that charge was reduced to a disturbing the peace charge, and she was convicted of a misdemeanor. That does not mean that the crime itself did not occur. It's a common practice amongst the district attorney's office and city attorney's office to oftentimes reduce those or do a plea deal. And I'll speak to the police report here in a moment, but prior to us receiving the live scan results, Officer Mike Terrell, one of our problem-oriented policing officers, went out to on-site to inspect the business location. The appellant and Mrs. Wong were on-site, as was a translator. Through the translator, the appellant and Mrs. Wong indicated the business was a family-owned business, that the two of them would be performing massages on site. They did indicate that they potentially would hire additional masseuses if business turned out to be good. They had 5 single bed massage rooms and 1 double or couples massage room. And then both of them indicated to Officer Terrell that they had never been the subject of any investigations involving illicit massage parlor activity. And again, that was prior to, at that time, Officer Terrell did not know that Ms. Wong had been arrested for prostitution. Both of them were certified through the California Massage Therapist Council, CAMTech, which is a requirement of our ordinance in order to be able to provide massage services in the city. This is a copy of the appellant's CAMTech certification, and I just want to point out the mailing address and the work address there of 1177 Broadway, number 16 in Chula Vista, and 4750 Oceanside Boulevard in Oceanside, California. Again, this is his Massage Therapy Council certification. This is Mrs. Wong's Massage Therapy Council certification. And again, although they're reversed, I want to point out those 2 addresses again, 4750 Oceanside Boulevard in Oceanside, California, and 1177 Broadway Avenue, Suite 16 in Chula Vista, California. Both were current. So a check of those 2 addresses by Sergeant Perez at the time revealed that 1177 Broadway Avenue, number 16 in Chula Vista, California was associated with Tai Chi Health Massage, and 4750 Oceanside Boulevard, number 812 in Oceanside, California was associated with Zai Sheng Massage. So I want to talk for a moment about Rub Maps. This is a public website that publishes reviews of massage businesses that offer sex acts for sale or in exchange for money. Based on my own training and experience, I have personally or been involved with at least the investigation of about 10 to 15 illegal massage parlors. And I can tell you we use Rub Maps in every single one of those investigations, and I have never found the reviews that people can go on here and put to be not true. These locations ultimately ended up soliciting undercover officers for sexual acts in exchange for money. So you can see here that the most popular of the nation review boards receives more than 325,000 estimated unique visitors per month. It catalogs more than 7,200 open and active illicit massage businesses around the country, allowing paid subscribers to search by state and city. So premium users can pay $20 per month, and then they can go on there and do reviews, and they can talk about their interactions with the different masseuses, how much they paid for certain sexual acts, what the masseuse will do, how they dress, and all that kind of stuff. We do have a news article that we'd like to play for you just real quick that highlights.
Despite the growing attention on the issue of sex trafficking, these businesses are thriving, and part of that success is thanks to one website, rubmaps.com. In San Diego alone, NBC7 Investigates found 173 massage parlors featured on the website claiming explicit sex acts for a price. RubMaps users write detailed reviews of the services they say they receive, including the cost and the level of satisfaction with the woman's performance. Users pay $20 a month for the service. RubMaps did not return NBC7's requests for comment. An online company's statement maintains that the website is, quote, wholly committed to raising awareness of the human trafficking issue. In the event we become aware of any incident of trafficking, we take swift internal action and cooperate enthusiastically with state and federal law enforcement officials.
So the Tai Chi health massage that the address was listed on both the appellant and Mrs. Wong's CamTech certification. When we did our research on Rub Maps, we saw several reviews, including this one. Now, because this is a public forum, we have chosen to redact a lot of the information because it's very explicit language and would probably shock the conscience to some of our public. But the council does have an unredacted version to be able to see. Zai Sheng Massage, again, we found additional reviews from individuals who had done reviews at this location, and it's important to note that the dates on these reviews correspond to the dates that they indicated on their CamTech certification that they were involved with these two businesses. We wanted to make sure that those dates matched up and we weren't looking for reviews outside of what they said that they were affiliated with. So the arrest in 2017 for prostitution, go here. Here is the citation that was issued to Mrs. Wong. You can see the address, the location of the arrest. While she was arrested, she was ultimately cited and released, so she was never booked into custody. For prostitution was at 5825 Mission Gorge Road in the city of San Diego. We later learned that the appellant owned that business at the time Mrs. Wong was arrested for prostitution, and this case was prosecuted by the San Diego City Attorney's Office. At the time, Sergeant Perez reviewed the arrest report. We requested a copy of that report. We ultimately were given that report. I have also since then reviewed the report myself, and I won't go into great detail, but what I will tell you is that Mrs. Wong agreed to a sexual act in exchange for money with an undercover police officer. So about that time, we issued a denial memo to finance. Finance issued the denial memo to the appellant. And then, as stated before, there was a second application that came in October of 2022, and at this time, the appellant was the only person listed on the application. That application, when we received it, also came along with two declarations that were written by an attorney on behalf of the appellant and Mrs. Wong. The appellant's declaration indicated Mrs. Wong will not be associated with the business, and he was personally unaware of any acts constituting moral turpitude, and he never mentioned that the two of them were married. On Mrs. Wong's declaration, she does say that the two were married. She further stated that her prior quote-unquote incompliance with the law was the result of being quote-unquote pushed by another employee, leading to her calling the police. Based upon our review of the police report associated with Mrs. Wong's prostitution arrest, her statement within her written declaration was a blatant mischaracterization of the facts and the truth. So we also checked with the City of San Diego business license. And we received two business hits, if you will, back from them. And as you can see here at the bottom, the owner is listed as the appellant, at least one of them. There was another person associated with this business for Joy Foot Massage. And this was, in fact, the location of the arrest for Mrs. Wong. So Joy Foot Massage, during the second review, once we got that information back from the city, that location too has had several reviews from individuals that clearly highlight that prostitution activity is occurring at that location. We also received this back from the City of San Diego. Again, you can see at the bottom that the appellant is the owner of yet another massage parlor, Jasmine Spa. Actually, I think it's on the same street, just a different address, 5995 Mission Gorge. And then Jasmine Spa, when we did a search of that location in Rub Maps, again, heavily redacted, but it indicates that prostitution activity is occurring at that location too by reviewers. And again, these reviews are all within the dates listed on this business license. So he was the owner at the time of those reviews. So I just want to do one final thing. So based on the totality of our investigation, we again recommended denial and wrote a second denial memo to the finance department. And I just want to read this because it's referenced before in Section K, but we based our recommendation for denial on Menifee Municipal Code 5.01.140 Section K, which states, based on facts and circumstances discovered by the background investigation which indicates acts of deceit, fraud, or other acts of moral turpitude, and the applicant's statements on the business license application, the chief of police or their designee reasonably determines that the applicant would not conduct the business enterprise in a law-abiding manner or would conduct the business in a manner that would subject patrons of the business enterprise to risk of harm or criminal, deceitful, or otherwise unethical practices.
Thank you, Captain.
So to conclude, excuse me, so to conclude, you know, you're not here today to hold staff's determination to beyond a reasonable doubt. This is not a criminal case. We're not making determinations on that. Today, we're here to show that staff conducted a thorough background check as mandated by the ordinance that the City Council adopted, that staff reviewed information and facts for them that they uncovered, and that Menifee PD reasonably concluded that with all of the evidence and facts gathered through a thorough live scan and background check, that the business license should be denied. And when they made the recommendation to the finance department also reviewed the information that was presented to them and made a reasonable determination that this business license for a massage business should be denied. So we ask that the City Council conduct this appeal hearing and adopt a resolution denying the appeal filed by the applicant and uphold the finance director's denial of the business license application for a massage business at 27701 Scott Road, number 204 in Menifee. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Fan. If that concludes staff's report, we'll go ahead and open it up to city council members for questions. We're not going to have discussion yet, but if you have any questions, now is the time to ask. Does anybody have any questions for staff? All right, I do have one question. I'm not sure, maybe even Ms. Kittro might answer this, but it has to do with the address and the location and whether or not the business itself has been issued a CUP for a massage business at the location. Even though that's not what we're discussing, we're talking about a business license, but I just want to make sure that things like tenant improvements and that sort of thing being considered, that site is approved for a massage business. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor, thank you for that question. There is a valid CUP for that location. This was reviewed and approved by the city prior to the adoption of the the business license ordinance, which included the special massage types. So currently, that CUP is valid. It runs with the land, meaning that anyone who uses that site another business, massage business can go in there and utilize that space today.
All right, thank you for that. Any other questions, council members? Hearing no questions, I'm going to go ahead and open the appeal hearing. It is 7:19, and this is another opportunity for the appellant to provide any additional comments that they would like to make. We welcome them to do so if he likes. So he's welcome to share any more information.
就是我现在有一个问题是，
I have a question right now.
我在申请装修的过程的时候，就已经递交到我的资料到 CT 的时候，把我的资料已经交到警察局去备案审查。
When I was doing the renovation, I already submitted my information and application to the city, and then city had already turned them to the police department for review.
就等于说是，假如我有问题，应该是在我装修设计发图的时候及时的制止。
So if there were any issue, I should have been noticed before I started to the renovation project. While we're doing the plans, somebody should have told me at that time instead of later.
而不是现在我已经从签约到现在已经1年多了，花了将近15万美金，对于一个家庭来说已经是很多钱了。
But now the situation is that it has been over 1 year since I signed the lease, and I've spent $150,000 investment doing the renovation on the project. So those expenses are very burdensome on my family.
因为我们是语言不好，对一些政府的法律法规不是很了解，所以说有些时候可能是会造成一些误解，因为我们不是很清楚。
And because I don't speak English, sometimes I am not knowledgeable or aware of the provisions of the city, and because of that, there might have been some misunderstanding.
而且我现在经营的按摩店都是正常的经营，每年的营业执照、检查permit、卫生许可证都是正常的renew，包括我本人的按摩执照，还有我太太的按摩执照都是正常的renew，没有什么问题。
And for my other massage businesses, those have been operating normally without any issue, and I have been renewing the business license every year, and I also have been reviewing the health license every year, including the massage license for me personally, my personal massage license, also my wife's personal massage license, those have been renewed normally every year as well.
以前刚才也说了，我们是喜欢 Menifee 这个城市，所以才搬到这边来，在这边买房，在这边生活，所以说想开一个店，给自己后续的生活之需。
And as I said earlier, I liked the city of Menifee, and that's why I moved my home to the city of Menifee and I bought a house here. I was hoping, it was my hope that I could live here and open a business here so we can have a nice life here.
就希望各议员能给我们一次机会，在这边能公平的生活，可做生意的机会。谢谢。
It is still my hope that the mayor pro tem, and also the council members could give me a fair chance so that my family and I can live and do business here in this city.
谢谢。
Thank you. Can I add something?
Yes. Could you
大家
have
下午
her
好。
state her name, please?
my name 我的名字叫王丽，我是蒋方凯的太太。
My name is Li Wang. I am the wife of Jiang Fangkai.
因为我们喜欢这个城市，来这边投资，我是想给到我这边以后的生活和我们的孩子一个好的生活，但是。
Because we liked the city, that's why we came here, and then we wanted to invest here so that my family, including my children, can have a nice life, a nice future.
为了这个生意，我们倾其所有，每天这么来回跑，我们也很辛苦，付出了我一生的心血。
But because of this business application, license application, we had exhausted ourselves, including our money, including our energy. I've pretty much spent all my life savings on this.
但是没想到，警察局因为所谓的一些信息，因为很多客人他们没有达到他想要的，他也会在information他去乱写我们的信息，所以警察局恳求你们讲事实，所以不要冤枉我们，你不能只凭这个信息来定我们的罪。
However, I plead that for the police department to not only rely on your decision or your information on the reviews provided by the people on the website, because sometimes these customers, if they did not get their required services, they would also go on the website and just write whatever they want against you. So I believe that it is not right to base your decision on the incorrect information that people provide on the internet.
做这个行业我们很委屈。
And to work in this field actually is a hard field to work in.
但是我们的语言不好，我们没有别的选择。
But because we cannot speak English, we typically did not have a choice to work in any other fields.
我所有的解释和我平常的生活都已经递交给政府了。我所有的我的张律师，就是我们所有的解释，我的图片我已经就递交给城市了。
All the explanations that I provided, and also my personal statement, had already been provided to the CD.
我只想好好的工作，有个更好的生活。
All I want is to work hard and to get a good life.
请求各议员理解我们的难处，给我们一个公平的评判。谢谢。
I plead that for the mayor pro tem, and the council member to give us a fair trial, a fair treatment, and then give us a fair conclusion. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak from the public?
Yes. Actually, I think it's another applicant, but they had two speakers. Joseph Chu.
Welcome, Mr. Chu.
Good evening, Mayor, Council Member, and City staff. I'm on the legal team for the applicant. Based on the documents that I received, the only conviction of any crime is found in the case number M23A326. And that was for the disturbance of peace. And it was reduced to an infraction. It was dismissed. The charge was an isolated incident. It was not an ongoing disturbance. They wouldn't run a massage parlor that would be noisy or anything. Wouldn't be a nuisance to the community. There was no, based on the police department's memo, I would be looking for a solid conviction of a crime of Penal Code 647B, which officer earlier has said that there was an undercover that went into the business establishment and allegedly commits such a crime by the applicant's business. I would be looking for an actual conviction document, a court judgment of such. So my applicants maintain their innocence. They would never allow this kind of activity to be occurring on their premise. And as you may know, this type of business can easily be defamed, as the wife has just testified. And customers are not happy. They can defame them on websites. And the denial was based on, as earlier, the picture that was painted with a lot of website listings or even arrest documents, citations, but those are not actual conviction of a crime of Penal Code 647, prostitution. So yeah, the applicant seeks to make a livelihood in this city, and they have run and will always run a decent establishment here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chu. Next speaker, Madam Clerk. Oh, that's all. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close the appeal hearing at 7:30, and we'll bring it behind the rail here for council discussion or a motion. So council members, if there's anyone that would like to share their thoughts or concerns or make a motion, we'll take that now, please.
I would just make a motion to approve staff recommendations.
All right, we have a motion to approve the recommended action to adopt a resolution denying the appeal for a business license for a massage business. Do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
All right, we have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Carwin. Any other discussion, council members, before we vote? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please put up the electronic voting? And I will report that that was passed unanimously as a yes, and we will now move on to our next agenda item. This is 11.2, Ordinance Introduction and Annexation Number 18, Rockport Ranch into the CFD 2017-1 Maintenance Service. Council members, we don't have to hear a staff report on this item. It's a formality. We do a lot of them unless someone would like to have a staff report. All right, hearing none. Council members, do we have any questions on this item? All right, I'm going to open up the public hearing. It is 7:32. Madam Clerk, was this public hearing legally noticed?
Yes, it was.
And is there any public testimony or written correspondence on this item?
There is none.
All right, and Madam Clerk, have you received any written protests on this item?
No.
And are there any persons registered to vote in the territory of the district?
There are none.
Have the owners of the taxable property in the district consented to holding the special election this evening immediately following this public hearing?
Yes, they have.
All right, and do you concur that the special election may be held this evening immediately following the public hearing?
Yes, I do.
All right, so I'm going to close the public hearing now at 7:33 and ask for a motion and a second to adopt a resolution calling the election to annex territory, including Tract 37131 into City of Menifee CFD 2017-1 maintenance services and levy special tax on that land. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. And we'll cast our votes. And I see that passed unanimously. Madam Clerk, have you received the official ballots and other election materials from the landowners that can cast their votes on behalf of the owners of all the property included in the territory?
Yes, I have.
All right, and will you please canvass the election and declare the results?
Yes, one ballot was received with 80 yes votes.
All right, and so that passed. And now I need a motion, council members, to adopt a resolution declaring those results.
So moved.
Second.
All right. All right, and so that we did adopt that, the results. And now, Madam Clerk, if you would, please read the title by ordinance.
Yes, an ordinance of the City of Menifee, California, amending ordinance 2017-231 and levying special taxes to be collected during fiscal year 2023-24 to pay the annual costs of maintenance and servicing of streetlights, parks, parkways, streets, roads, and open space, the operation and maintenance of storm drainage systems, a reserve fund for capital replacement and administrative expenses with respect to City of Menifee Community Facilities District 2017-1 Maintenance Services, Annexation 18.
All right, thank you. So, council members, finally, can we get a motion and a second to introduce an ordinance amending the ordinance number 2017-231 and levying a portioning the special tax in CFD 2017-1 Annexation number 18?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Thank you. That was Councilmember Estrada, right? And Mayor Pro Tem Carwin with a second. And I see that passes unanimously, and so that allows us now to move to our next agenda item, 11.3. And this is Development Code Amendment to implement our Housing Element Program Action Number 5. I see Ms. Kitzrow is here, our Community Development Director, so I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Good evening. The item before you is a proposed city-initiated development code amendment. The proposed code amendment would add provisions to our development code, chapter 9.130.030, to implement program action number 5 of the city's 21 to 29 adopted housing element. The adoption of the code amendment and completion of program action number 5 has been determined to be required by the State of California Housing and Community Development Department to achieve full compliance for our housing element. And there is a excerpt of program action number 5, which refers to candidate sites that were identified in our housing element that were also identified in the previous housing element. So the proposed code amendment would apply to new residential projects with a minimum of 20% of the units proposed to be affordable to lower income housing, and located on certain sites. So the amendment would apply to non-vacant sites, so sites that have some sort of structure on them that were included in our adopted housing element and identified as a site to meet the city's RHNA allocation. This would apply to approximately 19 sites in the city in our current housing element, totaling approximately 27 acres. The code amendment would also apply to those projects with a minimum of 20% affordable units on vacant sites that were identified in the housing element in 2 prior cycles. So with the city being a new city, we only have 1 previous housing element cycle. So this provision wouldn't apply currently, but if in 8 years from now, in our next housing element, we use sites that were in the current element and our very first element, this provision would apply to vacant sites that were carried over. The provision is to comply with state law, specifically AB 1397, and that law included several provisions which were meant to add additional criteria to make sure that cities identify sites in their housing element that could accommodate the affordable housing provisions. So here I won't go ahead and read all this. I've summarized it, but this is the specific table in the zoning code that would include the proposed code amendment language. A little bit of background and discussion. In January of this year, HCD completed their final review of our adopted housing element. In the letter that they provided to city staff, they identified that in order for our housing element to be compliant with housing law, that we needed to move forward and implement this program action number 5, requiring this code amendment. In terms of compliance with CEQA, the project has been determined to be exempt from CEQA, the common sense exception. The project further complies with CEQA because our adopted housing element that includes program action number 5 did include a certified environmental impact report that was also adopted by the council. So with that, staff is recommending that the council find the proposed code amendment is exempt from environmental review under CEQA, and that we introduce an ordinance approving planning case number LR 23-0017 to amend our development code to add provisions to chapter 9.130.030 to implement housing element program action number 5 and comply with state law. So that concludes staff's presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kitzrow. Council members, any questions? No discussion yet, but any questions for staff? Mayor Pro Tem Carwin has a question.
What happens if we say no?
Well, it is still state law. We would still be subject to comply. The program action implementation is part of our housing element. I can tell you that HCD has taken a proactive approach to ensuring that cities implement their housing elements as they have been adopted. So it is not recommended that we say no. I don't know if City Attorney Melching wants to add to that from the legal implications of saying no.
There are a whole bunch of remedies if you have a housing element that is out of compliance, including mandatory approvals, including a receivership that could be brought down upon you by the Attorney General of the state of California, including ineligibility for grant funding, large amounts of grant funding, which is premised on you having an approved housing element. So all of those penalties come down on you if you don't do this. And also, if you don't do it, it's no different than if you did do it, because all they've asked you to do is put in your local law what's already in state law.
So basically what I'm hearing is because of the law enacted by the state, what this ordinance allows is going to happen whether we want it to or not. And if we don't put this in our code, we face one or all of those penalties that the city attorney has just outlined.
That is correct. And to clarify, currently, this provision will only apply to those 18 carryover sites in our current housing element, totaling 27 acres. Although it's a ministerial review, an application would still be submitted to the planning department. And to highlight the importance of the objective design standards that the council adopted several months ago. So as long as the standards are objective, we can still review a project to ensure it complies with specific setbacks or architectural design.
Well, isn't that reassuring? That's all I have.
Any other questions, council members? All right, because this is a public hearing item, I'm going to open the public hearing 7:43. Mr. Villa, did you want to share?
Yep, Mayor and council members, I know we were all busy. We had a meeting today at 3, and checking my email, we just received the email from HCD with a letter letting us know that with the adoption of this, because we did take this to Planning Commission, we did submit the recommendations of the commission, and we did tell the HCD that we were intending to take this to council. We did receive a letter today indicating that we are compliant with our housing element. Just wanted you to know that.
If we approve this tonight.
Well, I think that you already approved this when we adopted the housing element, because we indicated that we would do this at a subsequent meeting. So, that's.
Yes, if we do it tonight, because you're not saying we can vote no, right?
No.
Okay. All right, Madam Clerk, was this item legally noticed?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear you feel the way I do. This one frustrates me too. Do we have any speakers or any public testimony on this item?
There is none.
All right, I'm going to close the public hearing then at 7:45. And now, council members, this is the opportunity to discuss. And if we don't want to discuss, we can just make a motion and get it over with. But I do see Councilmember Sobek in the queue.
Yes, I just heard some comments by you and Mayor Pro Tem out loud, and I just concur. I'm just going to put it on record that I feel like our hands are being tied as a city council from the state. These unreasonable mandates they're putting on us, one size doesn't fit all.
Well said. Any other comments, council members, discussion? Hearing none, what we'll need is a motion to find that the code amendment LR 230017 is exempt from further environmental review and direct staff to file a notice of exemption. That's the first action, and then we'll take a vote on another action after that. Can I get a motion to do so?
I suppose this would be a begrudgingly motion to approve.
There's a motion. Begrudging. Can I get a begrudged
Remember
second?
this the next time you go to vote for a state or federal election. Second.
State, yeah. All right, so we have a motion by Councilmember Dynas and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Carwin. And we have that begrudgingly passed unanimously, and now we need a second action, and that is a motion and a second to introduce an ordinance approving code amendment LR 230017, amending chapter 9.130.030 of the Development Code and add provisions for by right review of residential projects as required to implement Housing Element Program Action Number 5 to comply with the state law. Can we get a motion?
Mayor,
And it's a,
Yes, sir.
I apologize in advance. The title to the ordinance is a little different than what you just read.
Oh,
So if you would allow me, if I could just substitute the title that I've got.
that would be great.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Menifee, California, approving Code Amendment LR 23-0017, amending Chapter 9.130.030 of the Development Code, Title 9 of the Menifee Municipal Code, to include provisions requiring required to implement Housing Element Program Action 5 and comply with state law.
All right, very good. Can I get a motion to approve that ordinance?
So move.
Second. I get to put my number 2 on it.
Yes. I get it. All right, that passed unanimously, and thank you, Ms. Kittro, and hopefully this puts this behind us and we can get our housing element approved and not be vulnerable to any of those threats from the state. All right, let's move on. We're on item 12. This is our first discussion item, 12.1. This is agreement with Dawkin Engineering to conduct a feasibility study for the Salt Creek Trail construction and maintenance behind the Oasis. I think it's about a 1.6 mile segment or so, but I see Ms. Mitchell's here, so I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Community Services Manager Mariana Mitchell to provide a brief presentation on the proposed agreement with Dawkin Engineering for a feasibility study on the Salt Creek Trail construction and maintenance. So just a little bit background on the Salt Creek Trail. As we know, it is 4.1 miles of paved multi-use trail that spans through from Getz Road to Antelope Road. It is county owned and maintained. Originally, the project itself cost about $5.7 million. That is funded by the county. This all happened during some of our shutdowns. It was a virtual ribbon cutting that occurred in February of 2021. And shortly thereafter, the Parks, Recreation, and Trails Commission had requested a presentation from the Riverside County Parks and Recreation Parks District to come out and talk about the Salt Creek Trail, future plans, and connectivity, specifically about the portion that was left unpaved on the west side of Antelope. So from that meeting, let's see. From that meeting, again, focusing on some of the collaborative efforts, being a partner with the Riverside County, they have a desire to really want to complete this trail through Menifee, through the city of Menifee and beyond, because this is one of their backbone trails. And as far as our city of Menifee residents, this trail gets very well used throughout the city of Menifee. And then we also have some local interest in the fact that it does the user-created portion that is technically an unofficial part of the Salt Creek Trail. Is up against Oasis, the Oasis community, which does impact some of the neighbors. So what came about this was the cooperative agreement, which is something between the county and the city of Menifee, where the county had said they had extra funds from the construction of the trail and about $100,000 of county funds that would be available for city use in order to conduct a feasibility study. And this is specific towards the connectivity of that 1.6 miles behind the Oasis, also talking about a crossing at Antelope. So again, that connecting from the current paved trail segment to that user-created segment, and also kind of looking at the cost of maintenance, what that might look like either to the county or to the city, depending on the results of the feasibility study. The city. The cooperative agreement was approved by City Council in June 2022, and then approved by the Riverside County Board of Supervisors in November 2022. And so from there, the city wanted to move forward with issuing a request for proposal, which was also issued out in November. Unfortunately, we feel that due to the time constraints and the results being close to the holidays, we did not receive any bids. So with that, the city reissued a request for proposal for bids in January, right after the holidays, and we did receive 3 bids at this point. And so after evaluating the criteria that we typically evaluate all of our proposals on, city staff concluded that Dawkin Engineering was the most qualified for this project that we have in front of us. Some of the scope of work that we want to kind of identify that Dawkin Engineering and their approach, which kind of drew us to their proposal, was, of course, it's going to require some data collection, some working with outside agencies, including Riverside County, working with the Oasis, WellQuest, all of the property owners in that area. So really determining what that stakeholder outreach and coordination is going to be a huge part of this agreement. Environmental, of course, is going to be another part of it. One of the things that I believe believe is of great interest to the Oasis community is that security and liability component, wanting to make sure that the trail is being used appropriately and that it's being maintained appropriately to the best of their ability. Also providing some alternatives to development, because as we know, that user-created trail may have some inclines that may not be as accessible to the public. So again, trying to develop some alternatives for that. And additionally, some cost estimates, not only for the construction, but also for the maintenance of that portion. Again, we also wanted to include some additional trail amenities, additional items for placemaking. We keep talking about identity and what it means for our trail system, so kind of looking at that. And then ultimately, we'll end in a final feasibility study that we can utilize towards identifying what our next steps are going to be for this portion. The proposal came in originally at $180,000, just over $180,000. Staff negotiated, kind of whittling down the scope a little bit, and so we ended at $141,000, just over $141,000. And we are requesting additional allocation of $41,000 that is currently available in our DIF funds for specifically for trails and improvements. So that would be our request. And at this point, this ends my report. If there's any other questions or discussion that we'd like to have about this.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Council members, let's do questions first. Before we take any public comments, we'll start with Councilman Dinas with question.
Thank you. The unfinished part there, I guess we're calling it the Oasis segment now. I saw in your little...
Yes, it's referred to as Oasis segment.
Who owns that property?
That is the Oasis Homeowners Association.
Okay, so they will be involved on whatever decision-making?
Absolutely.
Okay, because every time I go into Oasis, this question is asked over and over. They are extremely nervous about this and having, strangers walking past their backyard. So I'm going to trust that this will be looked at and they'll be extremely involved in this analysis, as well as ways to make assurances that their properties, their homes are safe.
Yes, that was precisely why we were drawn to their proposal, because the outreach and the stakeholder communication was really strong, because we knew we've heard the issues behind the Oasis community.
Okay, thank you.
Next question is from Councilman Estrada.
Yes, my question was about the bidding process. I see the cost at $141 from Dawkin, but I didn't see the bids from Michael Baker or Community Works. What did those bids come in at? Can anyone help me with that?
Yes. So generally, for this proposal in itself, Michael Baker actually came in really high. They were probably the second most comprehensive proposal that we received, but they were about double the cost. So they came in just over $300,000. And then as far as Community Group Works, I believe they were at the $100,000 mark, but they kind of missed some of the things that we were looking for, like the community outreach component and some of the other items that the assurances that we were looking for, that we could have a complete feasibility study that would make us competitive for future grants as well.
All right, next question is from Councilmember Sobek.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mariana, sorry. Can you tell me, when did the county design this trail?
When did the county? Well, I know that the trail itself was under design through construction from 2017 to 2021. So that was the length of the project.
Now, when did the county have it on their books that they had this area planned for a trail?
I don't have that exact information.
Go to Jonathan.
If I may, the county's had this trail on the county general plan for several years. But as far as the exact alignment of how the trail would traverse behind the Oasis property, that's what we're looking to study. Because basically on the county general plan, it's a line that says, hey, the Salt Creek Trail, it will go from here all the way through. It's actually 16 miles total going all the way through Hemet. So they just have a line on their general plan map, but they don't have that exact alignment that's looking at all these issues as far as environmental, the other property owners, impacts to folks, while people traverse the trail, what kind of trail material will be. That's why we're partnering with the county to look at this in detail.
Okay, so the county did not have a detailed trail.
No, the only, the design portion that they did was for this 4 miles that's existing in the city, and then another mile that's in Hemet that they were
Okay.
able to construct.
So then on that, do we know if the county had a discussion with the Oasis builder when the builder was going to build the Oasis community?
We do know that the county has stated that there was an easement that the Oasis builder dedicated, but the county hasn't accepted the easement yet because the trail hasn't been constructed.
Okay, so then we don't know even if the residents were aware of that there was potentially going to be a trail behind that part of the Oasis neighborhood.
We're not sure about what kind of disclosures were given to
Okay.
the residents.
Okay, I'm just trying to get a little history here for this. Okay, thank you.
If you don't mind, I was a parks commissioner for the county, and this actually was a plan more than 20 years ago that the county wanted to do a trail along Salt Creek. But as we know, in the 90s, the golf course and Luss Company built the golf course along the course of the creek, and that confounded the ability to have a trail with horses and kids and bikes on the golf course. And so it pushed it to a less desirable location, which Ryland Homes, who built the Oasis, said we'd be happy to accommodate it back there. And they did verbally have an agreement with the county, as Mr. Nix said, but it just never was memorialized. And so the concern, as Councilman Dinas is saying from the HOA, is that they're liable right now if somebody gets hurt back there because it's still their property. It's part of the HOA. So they came to the county first and then to the city with their representatives and asked that we accept that they can quit claim that property to the city and say it's yours, but we need to have an agreement that holds them harmless and releases them from any liability. And that was kind of where the discussion sort of ended. So at this point, it's up to us now to make sure that we can determine what the cost is going to be and can we move forward. And hopefully Dockin is able to bring all the parties together. Because it's a 16-mile trail and this segment is so important, and I know we're on discussions right now, questions, and I'm starting to get into discussion, but I really think it's important. So anyway, any other questions, council members? Let's ask, do we have any requests to speak, Madam Clerk? Okay.
Yes, Mariana. You mentioned in your negotiations with Dockin you were able to bring it down a little bit. What if we go to Community Works and say, hey, if you are able to bring in the public outreach portion of it, save the city $40,000. Is that what's missing from the primary component missing from the Community Works was the outreach?
It wasn't just the primary component, the items that were missing. It was the completion of the document of itself, like the amount of detail they provided in their scope and in the items they would complete in those tasks. It just didn't have the level of detail that we were hoping to have, that assurance that the care and attention that we're expecting from the proposal would actually take place.
Okay, so Dockin's just a little bit more comprehensive.
Yes.
Not just with the public outreach. Okay.
Ms. Mitchell, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but as far as deliverables from Dockin, in the scope of work, are they going to be, as part of this $141,000, creating plat maps that designate meets and bounds and all of that for those various easements so that we can easily transfer those properties should there be a quit claim by the HOA? Is that what they're going to do? And have it all ready to go as with survey mapping and all that?
Absolutely. That's the component where they've honed in on right of way and making contact with the owners, again, with the outreach and stakeholder interviews, but also ensuring that we fully understand what's required in order to take on ownership, whether it's us or the county.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. I'm glad to know that's a component. All right, so Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak on this item from the public?
There are none.
All right, thank you. So, council members, any further discussion, or can we get a motion to approve the recommended action?
I'll make a motion, we approve.
Okay. We're also going to adopt a budget amendment resolution as well as part of that motion. Can you include that, please?
Yes, let's include the budget amendment.
Excellent.
Second.
All right, thank you, Ms. Mitchell. That passed unanimously. We are now on item 12.2. This is another discussion item, and we're talking about creating historic districts and preservation of rural areas. I see Ms. Kittro is here, so I'll turn it over to you to get us going.
Thank you, council members, members of the public. If I could have there we go, fantastic. So this item is before you as a result of a request from the council on May 4th of 2022 for a future agenda item to allow the council to discuss the creation of historic districts and preserving rural areas. The city currently does not have a historic preservation ordinance or any identified historic districts. However, local jurisdictions in California do have the authority to adopt local ordinances or regulations in order to protect historic properties within the city limits. An ordinance for historic preservation may apply to individual structures, features, landmarks, sites, and/or may apply to a district or a defined geographic area deemed to have significant historical or cultural values. So understanding local preservation goals is the first step to take in the drafting process if an ordinance is the path to move forward, and every effort should begin with a clear and succinct purpose statement, such as what is the historic value that the community wishes to preserve and where is it? So staff's presentation is brief so that the council can discuss this topic and whether or not to ask staff to bring back additional information for consideration. So with that, our recommendation is for the council to discuss the topic. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, very good. Thank you, Ms. Kittro. Council members, do we have any questions on this agenda item? Councilman Dynas, question?
A question. When the, if you take land or whatever you designate as a historic district, or is that forever then, or can you take that off, that designation off?
It would be difficult to take it off, right? In order to designate something historic, there are findings that need to be made, criteria that you're determining it's eligible. So you would have to make those reverse findings in order to remove it from a designation.
And then if I guess, because I don't understand, if we designate something, what restrictions do we place on ourselves then on that land or structure or whatever that we place the designation on?
We would create, an ordinance would create those provisions. So, for example, some historic districts include architectural provisions. So they would be based on an architectural theme or time in history. And so if an area is designated based on architecture, then the structures within that district would need to comply with specific architectural standards that would be included in the ordinance. If it was a district, let's say for equestrian areas or rural large lots, then you would be saying, let's preserve these large lots and future development would be limited. couple examples.
All right, Councilman Estrada, question?
Yes, I'm a big fan of local control, not a big fan of all the state rules from Sacramento. A lot of us in this room feel that way. If we were to designate a plot of land or a district as historic, what type of protections does that give us from Sacramento? Can they overrule our historic district and say, no, 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 we want this to go in there?
I'm going to defer to the city attorney on that question.
Thank you, Councilmember Estrada. Senate Bill 9, which was passed last year, which allowed for lot splits, and there was a lot of publicity about that. It has a specific carve-out so that it is not applicable to historic districts, nor is it applicable to landmarks. A couple of jurisdictions, most notably Pasadena, have attempted to create what they called a landmark district in order to, over large portions of the city, in the hopes that that would then exempt them from needing to comply with Senate Bill 9. That story is ongoing. The state of California, the Attorney General's office sent a letter to them that basically said, look, we're going to call this what it is. You can call it a historic district if you want. It's a moratorium. And because it's a moratorium, it's illegal under state law. There's a state law, the Housing Crisis Act, that says if you impose a moratorium and it isn't tied to specific public health and safety concerns, that it's illegal, and you can actually pay the attorney's fees for the party that challenges what you're doing. So the short answer is, it's too late for a short answer. I think that's probably the short answer. But the short of it is that it's sort of an ongoing issue. There's clear recognition that historic districts are exempted from some of the new housing laws that are being put down by the state of California, but there's also clear recognition that the state isn't going to tolerate the use of historic districts as a pretext for avoiding those housing laws.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak on this
There are none.
discussion item? Thank you. Council members, we can open it up for any other further comments. Councilmember Sobek's first.
Yes, it was, I brought this forward for staff to be able to provide us with information. I was hoping there was more information in here, and that's, I guess, the discussion we need to have. I would like more information. We do have some areas in our city that we need to look at. Is there areas that we need to preserve? Is there, as Sun City, possibly, Bell Mountain? We've got the Mother Oak Tree. We have historic farmlands from the Borises and the Morrisons. So I don't have enough information to make an educated decision, but what I would like to know is if we were to create some historic districts that might help with the unreasonable mandates placed upon us, that we would be wise and be prudent to look at that throughout our city.
All right, Councilmember Carwin's in the queue.
Thank you. I slightly disagree with you, Councilmember Sobek, that we do not have any of those things. Those are all private concerns that you're talked about. So if the property owner comes to us and says, I would like the city to designate my property as a historic area, that would give us a really compelling basis to do it, aside from us picking and choosing areas that we would like to protect that are owned by private interests. So, you know, I don't know, Ringing Rock is owned by Pechanga, right? Mm-hmm. Right. So with that, we wouldn't even need to do a historic because they're a sovereign nation and they're not subject to anything there, right? So something like Wickard Farm or Sun City or things like that, if they were to come to us and say, I'm really concerned about what's going to happen to this historic landmark that's on my private property, I'd like to have it designated, that's something that's really compelling that we can consider and would clearly support the basis for that finding. But for us to say, okay, look at the city and see what areas we can protect from stuff, to me, it opens us up to potential litigation. And I'm also swayed by the question that Councilman Dynas asked, which was, if we designate it, can we undesignate it? We can't play hide the ball with it, and that really, if the property owner comes to us and says, I don't want anything ever on here, I'd like it preserved as a historic farm, that's great. But if we say, hey, look, we don't want a high rise, so we're going to make a designated area historic, well, then we're stuck forever with that, and doesn't give us that kind of leeway. So I would be persuaded if a property owner came to us and asked for that designation. I'm not persuaded with the necessity to go out seeking places and do that.
So this is why I wanted more information, because it's not just about property. It's about historic areas in our city. It's not just about property. It's not just about unreasonable mandates from the state. We have not looked at this as a city to where is there historical areas, or what was, I was in your presentation, you listed a couple other things that it could look at. So it's not just about that. I would like to have more information so we can have a better discussion. I'd like to just understand it more. As you know, talking with the mayor of Norcal, they are a horse town USA designated by the state. So they have been able to do some historic things in their city. So it's not just about that. It's about understanding a little bit more, seeing, we don't want, there's always unintended consequences. So we just need to be wise stewards for our city and the overall picture to go along with the general plan. When we created this city and the general plan process we went through, the voice was very loud to protect our rural communities with large lots, etc. We have done our best as a council to do that. But as we continue to grow and change and population comes in and council members change, there might be people on the council who don't know that history and might make other decisions. So I kind of just would like to see if there's some things we should do and be wise stewards.
Okay, I'm listening very intently to what you're saying, and it's intriguing. All right, Councilmember Estrada.
Yeah, I just have a couple ideas. Mayor Zimmerman, you and the Historical Association already set up a couple monuments, 12 around town, and that could be maybe the skeletal structure, or maybe, just the first inning of the ball game in this 9-inning game. But also, I think Sun City and the Cherry Hills Plaza, maybe adding a label of the historic Cherry Hills Plaza might also help our economic development team and being a selling point. Hey, this is part of our rich history. Those are just a couple ideas to give us a little bit of a backbone.
I like where you're going with that. And when I know Ms. Gonzalez, our Economic Development Director, has spoken a few times with the folks over at Cherry Hills Plaza about identity and maybe creating that sense of place there to improve the opportunities for new businesses to want to come in with that kind of historic Sun City Plaza and doing a little facelift there. So you're right, and that could have a good positive benefit. those 12 monuments, I'll just let you know, we had to be a little bit careful, the Historical Association, as we place them and get permission from some of those properties, because as Councilman Carwin said, private property has, owners have an interest in, or sometimes get concerned, especially if they think that you're putting it on the California State National Historic Register. That comes with restrictions on what you can do there, and they may or may not want those restrictions, you know what I mean? And so there were a few that said, go ahead and place the monument, but promise us that you're not going to add this to the historic register, and which would make it so we could never develop or sell our property in the future, or our grandkids can't. So we told them we would honor that. So anyway, it's a delicate subject. Sometimes when you're talking about people's properties, mentioned Grandmother Oak on the Wickard property, and it's their property. They can do what they would like with it. It may be offensive for us to come in and tell them something, we're going to put a restriction on your property.
And I would never want to make that clear to tell a property owner what to do. But if it was mentioned to them that they have the opportunity to become a historical,
They
and if
might
they
want
agree,
to.
they might want to.
I agree.
So
yeah. It's good conversation. Mayor Pro Tem Carwin's next in the queue.
What I get concerned about when you're taking existing, like the Cherry Hills Plaza, what improvements you'll be allowed to do, you know, historic, and you're really, it's my understanding that you're limited in what you can change. Once it's historic, you're supposed to preserve it kind of the way it is. And if something becomes old rather than historic, you can't give it a facelift. You can't modernize a shopping center that's been deemed historic. You've got to freeze it in time. And, you know, as far as saleability of property, yeah, you've got a historic property. You're limited to continuing to use it as that. So I'd be concerned with what limitations we'd be putting on the property owners. And you're limiting the ability of the community to get what it wants in there if it changes its mind in the future.
I think Temecula is a good example of a place that saw the novelty of having an old town and added to that and improved that and put down wood walkways and signage and style.
But didn't they build an old town? I mean, it wasn't a historic district that they preserved. It was
right.
They built it.
Yes, sort of. I mean, it was older style, and it had the novelty of being over 100 years old, and it had some buildings that were built in the 1800s, and so it had a great history, just like our Cherry Hills Plaza. It's not as old. It's over 50 years old, but that's the novelty, and then you can improve on that just the way Temecula, that's a good example. Old Town Murrieta did it as well. They gave it a facelift, but they honored the historic part of it and exemplified that with wooden old style signs and all that kind of thing. We could do the same thing at Cherry Hills Plaza, and even just entering Sun City as you come off the freeway with some of our signage and identity and that sort of thing. We could say now entering historic Sun City.
But those two areas that you
Del
talk
Webb.
about, Old Town Murrieta and Old Town Temecula,
Yes.
are they historic districts?
I believe so. They have a specific plan, and it's the historic. It says it in the title of the specific plan.
But I guess what we're asking is it designated that way under their code for that purpose, or is it just a design ordinance? So I guess what I'm saying is if Temecula had said, this is a Pony Express stop, and it's part of our nation's history, we want to do that, they would not have that Old Town Temecula there. Because they didn't just retrofit existing outpost buildings. They built like the hotels and all that stuff that are down there that are being constructed. You wouldn't be able to do if it's a historic district. You're not just preserving it like a ghost town, you know, an old west town that you're saying we want to preserve it so it stays like this as a monument to our history. You're building something consistent with the history of the area, but it's new with modern amenities and modern facilities and those kinds of things. We can absolutely do that without restricting the zoning on it. That's all I'm saying.
That's right. Yeah, and some of it is new, made to look old, and some of it is actually old, retrofitted to be seismically safe. So it's a little bit of both, and we can do the same thing here. It's a different animal, but it's got similarities. So
So Mayor, he made me think of a couple things. You know, that's why I brought this forward is I don't want to be guessing, and I would like some facts and information to make an educated decision. I'm aware, like in the city of Redlands, so I'm aware they have a historic neighborhood, and those people can redo their homes, but they have to go to that commission, and they have to get the guidelines to keep that home historic. And I've seen some renovations driving through certain areas up by the cemetery in that area. So I would, instead of us guessing, I would just, if it wasn't too much work, you heard some of our discussion, that maybe you could bring back the answers and clarifications, and so we can make an educated decision if this is a wise thing to do in our city. And some, you just heard our conversation, so that would be my last, I think, remark.
Council members, what are your thoughts? Is this something worth having staff spend the time to do? We'll start with Councilman Dinas.
Now, I mean, if we're going to, there's no harm in getting a more detailed report. My concern would be to include in something that comes back is, you know, how does the city and a private property owner work together to make that happen? I mean, certainly I would think I'd agree with the Mayor Pro Tem. We don't want to force anything on it. That's, you know, eminent domain, and, you know, another wrap some other way. But if there was a way that if someone had some interest in that, or the city has some interest in it, and opened a discussion with the property owner, I could see that. But that would have to be then spelled out, and I think in an ordinance like this. But it's worth talking about a little bit more, because, you know, I mean, we have a lot of history here. It'd be nice to preserve some of that for future generations, but we need to be careful when it comes to private property, in my opinion.
Councilman Estrada's next.
Yes, I think we'd make Director Kitzero's life a lot easier if we can give her some specific examples of locations. That way, when she comes back, she can say, okay, examples A through D, or whatever our list may be, and we can target our specific questions. So I'll throw out Cherry Hills Plaza. Someone else mentioned the oak tree off of Scott. Other suggestions?
So this is what I was looking for in her. It says historical preservation ordinance may apply to individual structures, features, landmarks, or sites. It may or may not apply to a district or defined geographical area. You know, if we were to say, like out in Quail Valley, right? It was known for quails. I mean, how would that be a historical site? There's a lot of room for growth out there, but how would we preserve that history? So there's another idea, so.
And there is a monument there that talks about Charles Cooper in 1891, and I can tell you the whole thing. So we sort of have done that. I guess I shouldn't say the city of Menifee, but the Historical Association has kind of found those locations of historical significance and placed a big cement monument there, and the city helped us with that, and so did the county. And those will be there long after we're all gone, and hopefully that helps preserve those. It's strange. Menifee doesn't have an old town. We really don't. There's a couple knuckleheads that say there was, but there isn't. And but we have a lot of photographs of the 1890 school, and we know where the 1918 school was in Romaland, and have photos of that, and part of that building's still there, but it's in private hands. And so there's a lot of neat stories of places, our historical ranches and things like that, but we don't necessarily have that old town, you know what I mean? And so, unfortunate, it's sad. I wish we did. It would be great to be able to focus on something like that, but we're sort of scattered. Romaland, Bell Mountain area, Audie Murphy Ranch is big with Native Americans. I mean, there was a lot of neat things, and it's kind of scattered around the city. So, trust me, the Historical Association has thought this through an awful lot. We're doing our best to at least identify those places and be able to have the photographs all in one location, so. Councilman Dinas, you're next.
I guess I'd have to disagree a little bit with Councilmember Estrada because this is a city initiative, not a private property. So we start identifying private properties and then a report coming back without the property owner's discussion first might cause some concern within our community. So I'd rather have it on a generic level and do it that way so that we can look at it and see what it would take if we wanted to approach a property owner or if a property owner approached us. But getting, the cart in front of the horse here, when it starts identifying ones, I think that's a disservice to those property owners.
What is the sense of the majority of the council? Because I'm not sure if
So
they're asking.
I would like some more information to come back. I think they've heard our discussion, just so that we have more concrete information to make better educated decision.
Well, I definitely respect property owner rights. I would never want to force anything on anyone, But as the visionaries and leaders of the city, I think we have a duty to carry out our responsibility to be visionary. And so if I was the owner of the Cherry Hills Plaza, I would be flattered to say, wow, you see this vision and you want me to bring this contribution to the city. And if they say no, that's fine, no problem.
So let me try to put this question to everybody right now. Councilmember Sobek is asking staff to come back with more information. Does the rest of the council agree with that, yes or no? Yes, yes, all right, there it is, we have a majority. Thank you, Ms. Kittro, please come back with some more information for us.
I would just, my position is that if a private property owner wants us to consider their property as historic, they can come to us and we can consider it. That's how I would like to do it.
Okay. All right, let's move to our next item. This is item 12.3, 2022 Education Summit. It's a receive and file item to get an update on a education summit that took place last October. I see Mandy's here, so I'll just turn it over to you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members and members of the public. My name is Mandy Stevens. I'm a management analyst with the City Executive Office. Yes, I'm here to provide you with a very quick update, a receive and file update on the 2022 Education Summit. Here's my presentation. The City and School Districts Committee was formed in 2020. The committee consists of 2 council representatives. Currently serving are Mayor Pro Tem Bob Carwin and Councilmember Lisa Sobek. The committee meets with school representatives from the following school districts: Menifee, Paris Union, Romeland, as well as Santa Rosa Academy, Spring Charter Schools, and Mount San Jacinto College. The last meeting was held on October 27th. Sorry, no. Okay, did not want to do that. Okay, way too quick. Let's go back. Okay, so our last meeting was held on October 27th, 2022. The third, so every year the committee hosts an education summit. I should be clear with that. The last education summit focused on the safety and support of focused on the city and schools working together to support and promote safety within the community. During the roundtable portion of the meeting, school representatives and city staff discussed the following safety measures impacting the city and schools. Safe routes to school, online threats, and safety programs and services provided to students. Some of these programs include CPR classes and first aid. During the meeting, we also received updates from Public Works regarding infrastructure improvements that will support safe routes to school, as well as updates from Menifee PD regarding the deployment of school resource officers and different safety programs offered by the fire department. Okay, oh my gosh. Okay, this is very sensitive. Our next steps are ongoing collaboration meetings. Staff continue to meet with the school districts regarding public infrastructure projects and safety measures that are in alignment with the city's new strategic plan. And then lastly, we will be holding our 4th annual Education Summit in the fall of 2023. And now, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
Any questions? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, on this item, are there any requests to speak?
There are none.
Council members, we can open it up. I would like to just kind of hear maybe from the two attendees, and was it a positive event, and was there back and forth kind of some things from the city's perspective that the school districts might be able to do to help improve some of the situations?
I'm trying to bring up an email. I'll just summarize it. Superintendent Jennifer Root from the school district and her board members attended. They were so appreciative of city staff for the presentation and the discussion that we had about safety and schools. And they actually enjoyed it so much and felt there was more collaboration needed, that they wanted 2 or more held the rest of the year. But what has happened, I talked to Mandy earlier this week, and those concerns that the school districts had were, our staff has been meeting, police department, I think Public Works, they have been meeting with the schools and helping with those safe routes and other concerns that they had. So it opened up a dialogue, and it opened up results that came from the collaboration.
When you guys were speaking with the district, did the topic of site selection come up? In other words, when school districts are looking for the next school and where they choose to put it, whether or not there's infrastructure in place, or does that suddenly become the city's new problem? Did we talk about that?
There was no discussion. The theme was safety. Safety was the big discussion.
To that end, though, there was something that I found kind of shocking. The superintendent of the Romoland School District brought up that when middle schools in particular, next to parks create a major hazard for the schools, because when they let out, the students go to the park, and that's where they fight and get into trouble. And so there's a lot of school personnel who are deployed to neighboring parks to middle schools, because that's where the students go, and then trouble ensues. And I always thought that it was a great convenience to have a park next to a school, because you could utilize it for recreation and things like that, but it turns out that it's actually a hazard. And then the other, we found out Santa Rosa installed surveillance cameras throughout the school grounds, and the ones that they found that they placed outside of the restrooms, so you could see who's going in and out, really created a safety enhancement, because there was accountability to the students going in and out. They're obviously not inside the restroom to see what's happening, but when somebody goes in and then comes out and nobody else goes in and something's been destroyed in there, they know exactly who it is, and it creates accountability where there wasn't before. And I thought that was excellent ways to have eyes around campus. And I know my kids both went to Paloma, they both went to Menifee Middle, they both went to Ridgemore, and both of them said that they would never use the restrooms at Paloma because it was the most dangerous place in Menifee, the bathrooms at the public school at Paloma. They were both athletes, so they would both go to the gym to use the restroom or their coach's office. And but having accountability outside the restroom seemed to be a real safety enhancement. And I think it was also through that the discussion came about of splitting the cost of school resource officers, where in that agreement the city agreed to go in half on the cost of school resource officers, so we were able to get some more resource officers into the schools for that purpose as well. So that was a real benefit from that.
Did we talk about busing or crossing guards?
I believe that's what was further discussion they wanted to have.
Okay, good.
We did not discuss that so much.
Superintendent Root told me that they applied for a grant to the state for a new set of electric buses, either a natural gas, maybe? Natural gas buses, I think. I can't remember which it was, but they applied for a grant for like 7 new buses to come, so they want to enhance that service by getting those grants.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad you guys were both there, and thank you both for attending. And
yeah.
So it sounds like there's another one in the fall.
Yeah,
coming
it's
up?
been, I attended the first couple with Councilmember Dinas and now with Mayor Pro Tem Carwin. And they have been extremely beneficial to me as a council member. I'm hoping they have been the staff, that they've opened up dialogue and also results. You know, we've been able to collaborate and work together to make our city a safer place for the children that live here. So I think that's one of our main goals.
Yeah, sounds great. Councilman Estrada.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem Carwin, that was going to be my question, the RSO officers. And we always talk about being the safest city in California, if not America. And I think having an RSO officer at every school would be a slam dunk. And it's nice to hear that they would be willing to split the cost with us. I know it'd be expensive. I think we have 15 schools in the Menifee Unified School District. Yeah. And yeah, so how could we get that ball rolling? I mean, we've talked about it, or you've talked about it on the summit. I mean, can we bring it up as a future item within the near future?
We've talked about it a lot, and we've had discussions and reports, and the finances is always a big thing. Our city has contracted with Paris High School District for the 2 high schools that are in Menifee. And they have a great partnerships with RSO for Liberty, which is outside of our city. It's in the county, so we don't have jurisdiction over that, but a lot of our students go there. But we do have RSO at Heritage and Paloma Valley, and I have heard rumors that Menifee School District might be looking at RSO. Maybe you can answer this, Chief, at the middle schools. I'm not sure. I just have heard rumors about that. But it is costly.
And part of the problem is that we can't order it. The schools have to want it because it's their jurisdiction. So we don't have the authority to order. We could put officers out front, but on campus it's their jurisdiction.
So would they have to initiate this?
Yes.
Okay, at one of their school board meetings, they
would have to ask us to help, but really it's their budget.
And it's
ours. They ask our officers, they ask our department to allot officers for resources there, but we can't just order an officer to work on campus. Maybe the chief could respond to that.
Yes, Chris Carr, Chief of Police, Menifee PD. So to answer that question, yes, we do have a current contract with Paris Union. We are exploring the idea of bringing services to Menifee Union. We've been having conversations. This is an ongoing collaboration, really just assessing what the costs are. And as we pointed out, it's about providing service to the schools, the parents, and safety of the children. But there is a cost when you talk about designating that source solely to one site versus utilizing it citywide. So we're working through that. And we do have a plan. We think we're making progress. I've had conversations with Romoland. They are just as interested. It's just as important to them. What's different here is predominantly cities will provide services to a high school. Those filter down through middle schools and into elementaries. The difference here is we have 3 different districts. We actually have 1 high school district that is interested in the services to them. And then we have 2 middle school districts. And again, you look in the region, most don't do contracts or have officers at middle schools. So this is unique. This is different than the norm. But we are very interested, and we're looking to provide those services when we come upon an agreement for the cost share.
Thank you.
Mr. Viet?
Mayor and Council, one of the things that we wanted to, I guess primarily the main objective for us is to make sure that there was a clear understanding from the school districts and the city that there's areas of responsibility, and we didn't want to overlap areas of responsibility or find gaps in services, right? So one of the things we did is we went through some of the things that the city is doing and that we're doing, because those are things that fall under our responsibility. For example, making sure that the streets are properly posted, signage, striping, and things like that. We did talk about the opportunity to collaborate on school resource officers, but one of the things we did not want to engage is to for us to give them the illusion that we would do certain things that still fall under their responsibility, for example, crossing guards. And you know, the crossing guard issue has been an unintended consequence of something that they've done, right? They eliminated busing, and now everybody has to walk to school. So we continue to rely on them to make sure that they provide that service. But I think the main objective for the meetings from our perspective is to make sure that we understand our responsibilities and they understand their responsibilities. Parents don't really understand when something happens at a school. They don't understand whose fault it is. So we don't want to find ourselves in a situation where the parents are blaming the city or the school district because something happened because there was a gap in service. So that was the main objective.
Excellent. Any other conversation, council members? All right, Mandy, thank you so much. We will go ahead and note that this is received and filed. All right, let's go to our final discussion item. This is the creation of a business incentive district, and Ms. Gonzalez is here to help shepherd the conversation. Welcome.
Thank you. Cleanup hitter tonight.
Yes.
Mayor, council members, Gina Gonzalez, Economic Development Director for this big, beautiful city of Menifee. Waiting for the thank you very much. So back in November 2022, the mayor did bring this up of trying to have a discussion among the city council here of the creation of a business incentive zone. So just to give you a little bit of background, a bid or an enterprise zone, which no longer is current in the state of California since 2014. There were enterprise zones that were created by the state legislature that would deem an area an enterprise zone for about 15 years. So there are some that are still active within the state of California, but they expire around 2022, 2023, and 24, just so you know. But in theory, an incentive district or an enterprise zone is used to encourage economic growth through expansion, attraction, or retention of small and mid-sized businesses within a city or local jurisdiction. The overall concept is to provide this public-private companies while encouraging growth within that certain boundary or overlay in exchange for locating within that boundary. So the city would use these incentives to drive the particular interests that the city is trying to create. Examples of incentives that could be an alternative to zoning standards are building height, densities, could be standalone residential uses for certain nodes or public benefits, parking, architectural standards. There could be fee reductions or hiring credits, broker incentives, property tax reductions, and so forth, depending on the local jurisdiction. Just wanted to bring up what is currently happening within the city staff right now is that as part of the council strategic plan, we have been commissioned as a team to work on incentivizing lifestyle development and then office development within the city. We have completed both of those studies right now, and then from that, we have contracted out with a consultant to develop a matrix that we'll be presenting to the city council at a later date that would offer opportunities for what type of incentives we can go after in selecting for incentivizing office development and lifestyle development within the city of Menifee. In addition, we also wanted to bring up that just south of Scott Road between Keller and Scott, the city is working on the development and coming back to the city council for approval of the Southern Gateway, but an overall innovation district specific plan that we would be working on our comprehensive economic development, targeted industries such as tech, advanced manufacturing, and medical manufacturing uses. So with that, we are recommending to have a discussion on our business incentive district within the city of Menifee.
All right, thank you, Gina. Council members, do we have any questions before we start speaking about it? Madam Clerk, is there any request to speak on this item?
There are none.
All right, council members, we can ask questions or discuss. If I could, I just want to kind of kick off or lead off. I think this is something that has the potential to do what so many of us were hoping to do. When we look at areas like the Southern Gateway, and it allows, the zoning code allows for 12, 15 different things that could go there. And some of those we really, really are hopeful for. Councilman Dinas talks about mortgage paying jobs, and so many of us have said we want to see, you know, architects and engineers and biotech, telecommunications, analytical labs, anything silicon chip oriented, just vision Silicon Valley, right? So 3 or 4 of those items on that list or types of businesses are the ones we really are hopeful. We can't force those developers to not build those other things that they're allowed to build and only build those couple that we really like, but we can incentivize those ones that we really like, the ones I was just mentioning. And this is just me, and I'm asking for the council's thoughts and whether or not you think it makes sense. But I would love to see an overlay, as you mentioned, and we select a couple of different areas, and one overlay would say, this is our corporate business park overlay, and if you bring these 5 or 8 things, even though you're allowed to do 15 different things, but if you choose to do these specific businesses, that we would then incentivize, as you mentioned. And that would be the corporate business park one. I almost think there could be another overlay that's the lifestyle overlay. And lifestyle being live, work, play, shop, restaurants down below, gathering places, courtyard, human scale development, with residential penthouse suites up on top and offices in the middle, and all of that for people that want that lifestyle. And that's why it's lifestyle. But that's a little bit different than corporate business park, Silicon Valley, you know what I mean? And so I'm just wondering if we could almost consider doing 2 different overlays and have one that's maybe south of Scott Road saying this is the corporate business park one, and we're incentivizing more of those professional office type businesses. But then over maybe on the east side of the freeway, north of Scott, that's more the lifestyle one. I don't know how the council feels, but that one incentivizes things like, residential mix, vertical mix, and all those kinds of things that we had hoped to see back in the days when it used to be called mixed use, and we changed it to economic development corridor, and everybody kind of lost vision of what that was all about. But really, it's that whole work, live, play, transit-oriented mixed use kind of thing. So I don't know, council members, that's just sort of my thoughts real quick summarized, but let's talk about it.
So I see what you're saying, and I like it. I just think maybe it would be better flipped, maybe the Silicon Valley side on the east side next to the college, and all the other, and then the Temecula MSJC campus is on that side as well. Just, I don't know, it's a little bit more unison. And then on the west side, we see all the restaurants that we see right now in the Countryside Marketplace, and just having that all unison as a corridor for all restaurants. But, and then I also have a question for the council. Before I was here, if the vision was to make it Silicon Valley, why wasn't it just done, let's zone it Silicon Valley? We've left it open for everything else, and now we're trying to just make it Silicon, so why not just from the get-go?
It's an excellent question, and I was here when all of that discussion was happening. We had a GPAC, which is General Plan Advisory Committee, and I was on the Planning Commission. And at the time, the economy wasn't doing so well, and the city wasn't growing like we're growing, and there wasn't a whole lot of market demand out there for anyone to want to come to Menifee at the time. So we were kind of desperate, is the way to put it. And so because of that desperation for business, would take anything and everything. If you can think of it, we'll take it. And that was the mindset at the time. Now, that's what happened was our EDC said you can do everything, including distribution centers and warehousing, and if you can bring it, we would take it. But as we started to grow and the market started bringing things that maybe weren't as exciting to us as you would have with professional offices and corporate business parks. We started to get more selective, and that's why this overlay district isn't necessarily saying you can't do this or you can't do that. It's more like we want to incentivize these certain things that we do hope for. We have a college here, and I like that you're thinking about placing things near the college because those students are studying. We got a brand new STEM building being built over here, and they're studying all of those things in their fields of study, but they have to go somewhere else to find work. And they're saying to us, hey, council members, can you bring those types of businesses that we're studying, genetics, and we're studying chemistry, and we're studying programming for computers and all those kinds of things, right? And yet we can't find any work here. All we have is restaurants and, or you can work at a school district, and that's really all there is. And so we're hoping to bring those kinds of things. Yes, we know there's tremendous demand right now for warehouses and distribution centers, and that's what we're going to get if we don't incentivize some of the things that we do want. So this is a way of trying to be more attractive to some of those things that our fingers are crossed and we're hopeful for. So, Councilman Carwin, you're next. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I had a question, Ms. Gonzalez. Is this something is the absence of this restricting the demand to come to Menifee? Like, it seems to me that this is really a good plan, because I like the idea that it's incentivizing and not limiting. So instead of saying, hey, look, we want to be Silicon Valley so nothing else can come here and we're going to sit here and wait until that comes, and then if the trend disappears, then we're stuck. Whereas this way we can say, hey, look, you can bring anything that complies, but if you bring this, we're going to give you a little bonus. So if somebody's trying to bring in a business, you've got a choice between A and B. Well, B is going to have a higher profit margin because they're incentivized. We're going to bring that one ahead. But it would seem like this is putting the cart before the horse because we don't have the facilities. I mean, we don't have any vacancies in the city of Menifee right now. So until we get the buildings, I would want to know, does this assist development of the facilities, or does it do anything to that at all? Because if we had all kinds of open buildings and we're trying to incentivize businesses to come in and occupy, this is a great plan for that. But without buildings, I think all of these companies that you're talking about might be going, fine, we'll come to Menifee right now. You don't need to incentivize us. Where do I put my desk? And you go, there's an open field over here on Scott Road. You can stay there, and eventually there'll be a building around you. It doesn't do a whole lot.
Can I answer that?
Please do.
So builders are going to, most of them are LLCs with a board of directors, and they've got a responsibility to make a return on their investment, right? And so they're going to do a pro forma and a study that's going to tell them that the market right now is demanding whatever it is that the market's demanding, whatever's hot in the market. And right now, there's more logistics and things like that that are hot than corporate business parks for an office use for professionals. And so if you're going to choose which one am I going to build to suit, I'm the owner, I get a construction loan, I'm going to build something so that I can lease it to somebody, and you're just trying to decide, do I go with what's hot in the market and where there's demand, or I go with something that has less demand, but the city's going to give me an incredible incentive? See what I'm saying? And this is our way of nudging them towards the place we want them to decide if they're on the fence. So that's kind of what it's all about. They're either going to follow demand or they're going to follow something that's maybe not quite as in demand, but there's an incredible incentive by the city. I think Councilmember Sobek's been patient.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you bring up the incentive matrix underway slide? Can you bring that slide back up? Thank you. So on this, it says that you have this underway, and that what's needed is a for incentives. Is it needed lifestyle in office, or are these incentives you're looking at attracting and providing incentives?
Thank you for the question. It is a matrix that will address incentives for office development, and there'll be a matrix to address lifestyle development.
Different.
Yep, two separate categories.
Okay, so with this idea and doing the matrix, I think maybe we should wait and see what the matrix is going to come up with. And then maybe we have finish a more discussion on this tonight, table it and bring it back. You know, one thing, being a planning commissioner and being on the council for a while, what I've seen is every 5 years, interest changes. I can remember when all they wanted to do was come in and build apartments along our economic development corridor because apartments were hot. And then, you know, something else came in that was hot. And now logistics centers are a hot item. So every 5 years, I've seen this change. But I'm really interested to see this incentive matrix that their staff is already working on to go with our plan. And then maybe see how this could tie in to something like that.
What are you going to bring as an incentive matrix? What is it that we're going to be waiting for? If we're going to kick the can down the road for something so special, what is it?
So one of the discussions that we're having with the consultant and our development team are different opportunities for incentivizing those types of uses. It could possibly be what you're discussing is broker incentives, right? So to encourage a company to come to a particular area that isn't any different than what a neighboring city would offer, right? But there might be tax incentives, property tax incentives that it could be to offset costs. It could be those broker incentives could incentivize particular uses if they bring it in. Because reality is when a broker is bringing forward 30 different businesses because there's a shell building, in the end, that broker really can guide the conversation to the property owner as they see fit. But if you're incentivizing, possibly, this is just a possibility, a broker incentive attached to a particular use, they may be more adaptable to putting that particular use at the top of the stack to present forward to incentivize that particular use in a community. But there's an array of different things. It could be development impact fee reductions at a percentage. There's just a slew of different mechanisms that the council can look at as a consideration for a particular area that we're trying to incentivize, like the innovation district.
Okay. I don't want to kick the can down the road for waiting for something like this matrix thing or whatever, when it's so simple. The direction is create an overlay district that just basically says, these are the things we want. If you bring those things, we're going to give you these. For lifestyle, it makes sense to say we can have certain residential or parking and things like that that are incentives. But for corporate business park, standalone residential, that's not something we would ever put there, right? You wouldn't see that in Silicon Valley. So that doesn't make any sense. So to me, it's just, yeah, but go ahead. Maybe
well,
I don't
have
understand.
a question, and I don't remember what it was. We had you had a survey done of the needs that were needed in the city, strategic. You had some kind of, what was it? You had paid someone to come in and tell us what Menifee could use. The jobs blueprint, thank you. So the jobs blueprint lists some of those things that we would want to incentivize, right? And so that's part of that information that we would need to decide if this is what kind of businesses that we would want to do that for, because we have the job blueprint in place.
Well, in the SEDS, those
The
job
SEDS,
blueprints
yes.
are tied to the SEDS directly,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah, so I would like to be have a review possibly on what that said that Menifee could use and what we're looking for.
Okay, sounds good. I think I mentioned them, and I can go through them again. I don't know if there's something magic that Gina can do that's going to print these things maybe that would satisfy you. But the bottom line is there are corporate businesses that we have zero of, and no professional office can come here and set up business because we don't have any kind of office complex. There was one, and the city of Menifee put City Hall here because there was no other place. We needed a place, and we took the one that was going to be available for offices. So there's demand, right? There is demand for businesses and offices. So, and I can go through the list again, but maybe we'll wait for Gina, and I'll work with the, because I got it all in my head. All right, Councilman Dinas is next.
Thank you. So the matrix is identifying the incentives that we would offer.
Correct.
And so what we're looking at tonight is placing an overlay to incentivize certain businesses to come. So we can either come up with incentives and then decide where we want to apply them, or look at the district, the overlay, and say, okay, this is what we want to come here. What should the incentives be? To me, I think we can do it concurrently. Absolutely. And that way we can then complete them at the same time. Because there's a company out here trying to decide between Menifee and another city. And, with the incentive and the location identified, hopefully that would convince them to come to Menifee as opposed to somewhere else. So, I see no reason why you couldn't do it concurrently and tie them in together.
If I can add, in some of the discussions that we're having with site selectors, they're also looking at CEQA, right? So is the project shovel ready? So that's one of the importance of that specific plan, correct? Because it does get us through that CEQA, and that is actually, and when we were just at a site selectors conference this past week, talking to those reoccurring site selectors that are interested in the city, they were very interested in where we were with that Southern Gateway specific plan because of that. That's a huge hurdle.
I agree with that, and I'm really happy about that specific plan and getting the environmental done. But again, it doesn't make someone want to do one of these 5 things of a list of 15 things. They may still choose this specific plan or not, you know what I mean? And so we may get stuck with something that we're like, another one of those, and we still don't have any of these.
Well,
so.
And Ms. Kitzer and I have been discussing that exact thing in the Southern Gateway, and that's the first hurdle is the community outreach kickoff that's happening in the next week.
Okay. Councilman Estrada's next. The list is kind of long here. So.
Yeah. I'll give you a little bit to chew on and throw you a bone here, Mayor. Let's put the businesses you envision on the east side. I just think it's a little weird if we put it on the west side. We're going out to dinner, might have some wings at Buffalo Wild Wings, and then a couple feet away they're making computer chips, and then all the new businesses that could come in. It's just so much that I just kind of like to see some unison. And on the east side, I think it'd be a good match next to the college. So that's my suggestion.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Carwin?
I have actually endeavored to go back through my planning commission meetings and find the time that I said out loud that I would love to see professional business offices in town. I'm sure Cheryl remembers this meeting because I had it out with a developer, and the guy looked at me and he said, nobody wants those. Said, look all the way up the freeway corridor. All of these office buildings are empty. And I was trying to make him understand the difference. This might have been 2016 that I was making that same plea for exactly what you're asking for today, which I find ironic because then everybody was telling us nobody wants them, nobody's going to build them. And now we're saying, look, everybody needs them. And that's kind of the ebb and flow that Councilmember Sobek was talking about. So, but with the courthouse going in and all of those kinds of things, I think those I've been saying it for years as somebody who has looked for that kind of office space in this town to occupy and can't find it. I'm telling you that every attorney that I know is asking me if I know of open office space in the city of Menifee. And the answer is there isn't any. So I think that's great. What I would like to see, if we're gonna give direction to economic development, what I would like to see is if we want to attract this type of business, here is the incentive that this industry is looking for most. If we're going to attract this type of business, here's the incentive and I think it's probably different in different industries. You know, if it's a broker incentive on building a type of building, or if it's a lifestyle type of company, like if somebody like Topgolf wants to find a city, here's what they look for from the city. Or, you know, I mean, that's a specific example, but I mean, I'm talking about an industry. So if you pick like 3 or 4 different types of industry that we're trying to attract, not just that exist, but the ones that we want most to attract. We say, here's what they are, and here's the incentive that they most respond to. We can take a look at that and see if that would be a good way to do it. And that's Councilman Dynas is saying we can do those concurrently. I think that's exactly it. If we can get, that's the matrix. I mean,
If I could suggest maybe a range, because I would hate to show our neighbors our cards.
oh yeah, exactly. You know, just some idea, because I'm sure that it's a difference between industries on what they look for and what is meaningful to them. So I think that the incentives are different. If a company's going to build a building, their needs are different than a company that wants to bring it to match them with an existing building, things like that. So that's what I would, if we're going to go forward with this, and it sounds like we are, it's like I said, it's a good idea. I'm just curious if it's too soon to do this, or if doing it before we need it is a better idea, so we can project into it. That's what I would like to see.
Thank you. I appreciate the support on this. It's not too soon. It's something I wish we'd have done a long time ago, but we have this tendency to kick the can down the road. Let's wait for something or whatever. Let's do this. Gina, you've been ready to do this for a long time. I remember
I'm holding back.
years ago you said we need to have like a way to incentivize the things that you want. So let's do that. So council members, do we all agree to have Gina proceed ahead and let's put together something she can bring back to us to approve? All right. Sounds good. Gina, thank you so much.
Thank you, council.
All right, excellent. Let's move on. We're on item 13. We're almost at the finish line. Mr. City Attorney, do you have anything to report?
Nope.
All right, Mr. City Manager, anything to report?
Yes, I do. Earlier, I mentioned that we received a letter from HCD regarding the compliance letter. You know, we are taking that letter to mean that the state has actually certified our housing element, and that's pretty big. It's pretty big because we've been waiting for that to make sure that we have a compliant housing element. We were a bit nervous because failure to comply with state law under that and not having a certified element exposes ourselves to, you know, builder remedies and things like that. And so having this is pretty important, a very huge milestone for the city. Just wanted to say that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Villa. Council members, item 15, any requests for future agenda items? All right, hearing none, we are adjourned. It is 9:09. Thank you, everybody. Those who are still here, you made it all the way to the finish line. We appreciate you all. Please stick around.